Hello, 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 hello. You know what time it is, ladies and gentlemen? It's time to get down to the Mr. Glow podcast as we review the seventh event on the Ultimate Fighting Championship. This is UFC 7, the Brawl in Buffalo. Hello? So, guys, I'm using my computer camera as we're speaking because my phone uses up a lot of gigabytes. And, guys, I think after I'm doing this episode, or consider when I'm done, because I'm not on a deadline, um, sorry if I actually, if the video pauses for some reason. Did that in some of my Shoutgun Saturday Night episodes. But I'm trying to save up gigabytes because my computer only has like 15 gigabytes left, and because this phone uses a lot, and I have a feeling this might be a 2-hour podcast because I'm reviewing the entire series, the entire event of UFC 7. I might cut it into parts, so maybe in an hour or so you might see me wearing a gray or white shirt or something. So might take a break, who knows. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is actually the 99th episode of the Mr. Glow podcast, and UFC 7 is the landmark of the change. I might take time off or take a break from doing this because I gotta save up my energy for episode 100, which will be the Terrence Crawford and the Canelo Alvarez fight, which will be my 100th episode. Also with Naoya Inoue, which that's going to be another episode I'm looking forward to. So, and even though I'm not on the deadline, I am recording this 1 week during the final week of August. So, and even though this event took place on September the 8th, 1995, so about a week or so until that time comes. So I'm not on the deadline yet, but you have to do this sooner than later. And with 9,000 attendance, 190,000 buy rate, and Michael Buffer making up the biggest error of his career, believing that the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium was home of the Buffalo Bills, when in reality it was home to the Buffalo Sabres NHL hockey team, not the NFL team. Technically, ladies and gentlemen, UFC 7, the Brawl in Buffalo in New York, Buffalo, New York, is the landmark of the biggest controversy in history, with all the wrong reasons. And surprisingly, guys, there is information here. Now, guys, on WrestlingForum.com, known as Professional Wrestling, did have a person that was registered under the name of TK175, registered when he joined in October 2007, released out a discussion starter on July the 14th, 2016, almost 10 years ago, as he actually found a discussion on the Wrestling Observer newsletter on October the 2nd, 1995, 1 month after this event ended. Talking about the major changes of UFC coming after shows going off the air during main event starters, and with everything else, there's so much crazy stuff in the boom period because 1995 is a change where new ideas are coming. WCW is already putting up their Monday Nitro. Sorry about my sore throat. And most importantly, WWF is still on a tight budget on what they're trying to do to make their content great. ECW has already been in their first year, still a rookie. And Smoky Mountain Wrestling for Jim Cornette is about to come to an end in November this year. So, depending on who you ask, 1995 has a lot of changes in the world of boxing as well, with Mike Tyson that already came back in August against the Peter McNeely fight, which was awesome to talk about, and with great young champions out there to talk about. And we already had our Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield trilogy match, which was already the best to talk about during the time, because that Bowe 3 fight took place was on November the 4th, so we're about a month away or so until that moment came. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the real entertainment that I want to talk about before we talk about the show. So we did have some call letters based on phone calls and letters and fax messages to the Observer on Tuesday, September the 26th. With some of the statistical margin of error might be plus to 100%. So some of this might not be true. So the Semaphore Entertainment Group were contemplating some major changes in its UFC format in response of UFC 7 going overtime, costing the company an estimated 650 G's. Yeah, 6 figures of money, that's not good. UFC producer Campbell McLaren, which was the producer at the time, admitted that the cable industry is furious at them for not ending the show on time, and estimated that it would have cost SEG roughly 1/3 of their revenue of what would have been a 0.9 buy rate on the September the 8th show, or nearly $2 million of gross. When UFC 4 didn't end on time, SEG was able, when I say able, I really mean able, to soften the blow with cable customers to where the losses were a great deal, less by offering UFC merchandise and free replays showings. Cable companies were a lot less forgiving on the second time when it came to pacifying customers when they complained about not seeing the finish of the final match. Because of its situation with both cable companies and the huge loss of revenue from the most recent show, McLaren admitted it was imperative that nothing of that sort ever happens again, and felt that the next show, the Ultimate 7.5, which will come sooner, the company's biggest show to date, couldn't have come at a better time. While the changes aren't concrete, McLaren expects that the time limits for matches will be shortened on future shows. The rules as of the last show were 20-minute time limit matches in tournament matches, but with the expectation both matches, of the exception of the finals and both the super fight and tournament finals, were scheduled to be 30-minute time limits with 5-minute overtimes. Although because of time constraints, in the September the 8th, Ken Shamrock versus Oleg Tokhtarov, and for some reason I'm having problems. I gotta plug back my mouse again. Oh, great. I'm stuck. I am legitimately stuck. Okay, give me a second, guys. Oh my God, this friggin' Walmart advertisement's blocking off the screen, and now my internet just paused on me for some dumb reason. Oh my gosh. Give me a second. So technically the first part, when they said when UFC 4 didn't end on time, guys, this is the first time I realized this. I didn't know that UFC 4 had problems with overtime, which is kind of crazy. I guess people were not expecting the Royce Gracie and Dan Severn fight to be that long in 15 minutes. So it kind of made sense why it never ended on time almost. So I am shocked that, just to let you guys know, that's the first time I actually heard about that. First time I ever heard about that, the information about that, which is kind of ridiculous and shocking. So seeing it happen again 3 UFCs later, that is a shocker when you say the least of it, because I don't think none of us expected it to be that hurtful, pretty much. But yeah, in the September the 8th Ken Shamrock and Tokhtarov match, the overtime was limited to 3 minutes. The exact decision on what the new time limits would be hasn't been made, other than a change is expected. In addition, some sort of judging criteria or point system will probably be implemented for matches that go the time limit to pick a winner. In addition, UFC is going to set up a ratings and seeding system and abandoning the blind draw for matchups. as it has used in the past. The blind draw was initially a way to quell any possible criticism of favoring certain contestants that seeding fighters would certainly bring. However, it appeared going in that the luck of the draw would play more of a major factor in Ultimate. It was conceivable the two toughest guys could meet in the first round, thereby eliminating one of the exhausting and others to the point they winner would be too injured to be weakened to where they couldn't win their second match. While that has always been a possibility in the past, with the fighters learning defense better and the toughest group in any tournament to date, the odds of lengthy and exhausting first round matches are greatly increased, even with a seeding system. Surprisingly, in the first rounds in the Buffalo, New York tournament, actually was pretty decent. Not bad, but yeah, I get what they mean. Also, Marco Ruiz stated, who actually came into the tournament with a hand and a finger injury, was scheduled to be part of the December 16th in Denver tournament, along with Dan Severn, Steve Jenham, Oleg Toktorov, Tank Abbott, Dave Benatillo, and Keith Hackney. The final slot was in serious negotiation with Royce Gracie for it, but between adding judges in time limit matches and shortening the time limits, both of which work against Gracie's style, I'd say it's, if anything, more of a long shot that he'd be putting the family unbeaten myth at an awfully great risk. Facing a tournament with nothing but larger men and shorter time limit matches where judges would decide in the event of no finish, not to mention a situation where there probably wouldn't be an easy opponent to bunch. Gerard Gorget, a world-renowned all-around karate, kickboxing, street fighter, lost against Gracie in the championship in UFC 1, did officially turn down the invite, which is good for him. And guys, I already talked about Gerard Gorget, his last MMA fight when he went to Japan to take on a dude, and all they did for over 4 rounds of 8-minute fights were just hanging on to each other to the rope, and then Gerard decided to say, "Oh, I'm giving up," and that's it. That fight was definitely fixed. Ugh, don't watch it. It was bad. But yeah, but the real information came here. But there's a few more paragraphs here. Another reported stated here that they will also stay away from the tournament scenario for the follow-up pay-per-view show in February. That will be instead a fight card of singles matches where they would attempt to use their own 900 line, internet, and other direct response avenues to put together matches voted by the fans. Now, guys, 1995 was the year when Windows 95 came in, so internet was pretty new at the time for us people in public, so who knows how many people were having fun with that during this time. So who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Also, the New York Daily News stated on September the 16th, 8 days after the show ended, ran an article saying that the New York governor, Pataki, the governor, was hoping to stop any future UFC events from taking place in state. According to the article, fellow Republicans have attacked the governor for failing to stop the UFC event in Buffalo, which drew an estimated $300,000 live gate, which would be roughly double the all-time UFC record. Senator John McCain of Arizona, who had actually given UFC a lot of media publicity before previous events with his attempts to publicly shut them down, waited until after the event, this time to complain in a letter to Pataki saying, "It is very disappointing that New York State officials could not prevent this appalling event from taking place." Keep this in mind, guys. The next UFC would never take place in New York again until UFC 5 in New York City in November the 16th, 2016 in Madison Square Garden. And then the next year later, they would go back to Buffalo a year later in April 2017 in UFC 210 due to the rematch of the Cormier and Johnson 2 fight. So, yeah, that would be on April the 8th. Man, 20 years when they never go back to Buffalo, New York. That's ridiculous. Crazy. Man, that's crazy. Crazy. But anyway, the last paragraphs, here's some smaller paragraphs here. Bob Bowman, a spokesman for the governor, said he wanted to stop the event but didn't have the authority to do so, but hoped to be able to stop any future events. Well, he did that perfectly. The UFC officials said they've received no contact whatsoever by New York State officials in regard to not allowing them back. And then the last paragraph says here, McCain has continued to complain about the dangers of UFC when after 7 pay-per-view events, its injury rate has proven to be far lower than numerous other sports. Every contact sport has its dangers. And theoretically, because of the lax rules, this should have more than its fair share. But the reality has been anything goes allows grapplers to dominate the ground, making it safer than sports where the lone allowable offensive weapon would be percussion blows. Although pro wrestler Gaza Kaman Jr. suffered a spectacular amount of bloodletting in his alternate match fight in Buffalo, he was fine as soon as he was stitched up. And his was the most serious injury on the show. A few others were bruised in the face from punches, but none as bad as one would expect of a typical high caliber boxing event. And looking back at it, guys, that's about it to talk about. We've already had our own information because this was during the time, as said before, where WCW and other shows were already putting out their Monday night shows at this moment. So pretty much. Now, guys, I'm going to ignore the alternate bouts. The bouts is Joel Sutton defeated Geza Kalman by 48 seconds of a TKO punch of a cut. And I actually saw the fight, which was crazy. It was a surprisingly a quick under 1 minute match. And yeah, I can see how much blood. Joe really hurt the living crap out of him a little bit. But when it came to a cut, yeah, that was pretty shocking. Yeah. By the way, they had 3 alternate bouts, and all of those 3 alternate bouts were involved in the tournament, meaning that anyone that gets injured would have to be replaced. So, but yet again, no one did. The other fight was Francesco Maturi versus Onassis Parangal, whoever his name is. Perungal defeated Francesco 5 minutes and 26 seconds by TKO submissions and strikes. Now, guys, the last time I reviewed a legit alternate bout was when Kevin Rozier came back, and there were live footage of it, and of course, barely some out there, but the real danger was already beginning from the start of day 1. Makes sense? I guess. And of course, guys, the last fight was Scott Besack defeating David Hood by a guillotine choke in 31 seconds. Or as the commentators would say, 37 seconds, but on Wikipedia it says 31 seconds, so I don't know. Take that for what you will. Yet again, guys, not one of those alternate fighters would actually perform in this tournament, as all the fighters in the quarterfinals managed to get out alive, which is lucky for them in New York, and surprisingly, it was actually luck that helped them there, which is okay, not bad. So guys, it's been almost 20 minutes. I think it's time to get things down to business. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of changes here. Because UFC 7 would have to be another error that was actually a new era. And guys, I might talk about the quarterfinals fight first just to save my energy for another time. So if I stop recording the video, guys, maybe I'll just take a break. Because there's going to be a lot of information here. And guys, I'm going to ignore the commentary because sadly, Jim Brown, the NFL Hall of Famer, I try to look up information if Jim Brown was in the Hall of Fame or something, or in the commentary team. Well, technically, whether if it was true or not, I really couldn't explain that for sure. But unfortunately, I couldn't really see if he was there or not. But we'll get to that moment in just a minute. So, so the show finally opens up, ladies and gentlemen. The show opens up with this wide blue screen of a black screen, and then blue color starts shooting us out. It looks like we're shifting gears in space to light speed, but don't worry, at least it's not ludicrous speed. It's just light speed, because we actually see the letters of UFC painted in gold, and the letter V and the 1-1 are the two eyes, which are known for UFC 7. That's how it's called, and they're painted in silver letters, by the way. Is coming straight at us to the screen. And then as it's about to get closer right now, we get two guys, one with a black suit or something, and I realized it was Tank Abbott headbutting someone, punch, and then the screen cuts out. The sign, the letters are getting closer to us. We're having multiple punches. Dan Severn being a guy with pink shorts. Oh, we have Harold Howard fighting out of it. This or that, kick, punch. Oh, we're getting the fighters back in competition. And as the Ultimate Fighting Championship letter comes in, we have our buddy with the black shirt come straight to the cameraman with his bloody nose and headbutt the camera right in there, which is great enough. And then, well, the rest is history, because with awesome music, we get our first words for the fighters. And this is what it wrote. This is what I wrote everything down. For the martial artist, this is the top of the mountain, the octagon, years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice, all led up to this, the Olympics of the martial arts world. To step on to this match is to realize the dream of a lifetime, but for some, it turns out to be a nightmare. Tonight, the fastest, most powerful, most intense fighters on the planet meet in Ultimate Fighting Championship 7, the most talked about event in sports. They come from 5 different countries, putting their skills to the ultimate test. 8 fighters on no-holds-barred collision course that ends right here in the octagon. And when it's over, only one will be named the 7th Ultimate Fighting Champion, plus the Super Fight. Defending Super Fight Champion Ken Shamrock meets UFC 6 Kingpin winner Oleg Taktarov. The Rock versus the Russian Bear in Shamrock's first title defense as master of the octagon. Both men kings of submission. Both men battled, tested, and ready. But for the night, only one man will emerge victorious. So welcome to the House of Dreams and Pain, the House of Guts. The glory of the stage is set for UFC 7. Let's open up the gate. Now, if that, ladies and gentlemen, is not how you start an intro for a badass opening slot for a show, I don't know what is. It's awesome. It's awesome. So after all of that's being talked about, the black screen, everything, the sign, the logos are all gone, and then we cut to a miles of water, of an ocean, and of course, if you've been to Buffalo, I think you know what water they're pointing at. They are at the western New York on the shores of the Lake Erie, in the city of Buffalo on the cool, full September evening of the Erie Basin Marina in the heart of the waterfront adjacent, if that's how he calls it, the historical city hall of one of the centerpieces of the Buffaloes architectural legacy are setting for the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium. And ladies and gentlemen, when I'm looking at the Buffalo Auditorium, it kind of makes me feel sad to talk about it because, ladies and gentlemen, 1996, a year later, is when the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium would actually be closed. And then by 2009, it'll be demolished. And if you guys didn't see the photos and the pictures of it, it was tough. Because, guys, the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium, this would actually be the last time we would ever have a big major event in the sport for all time. Because, guys, this had great record moments in history. Like in 1976, they had the Braves versus the Celtics with a huge sellout crowd record of over 19,000 people in a 21,000 seat event, which is interesting enough to say the least. And with everything about John F. Kennedy and his rally in September of 1960, and with everything else going on, it was crazy. They had the Kansas Golden Griffins of the NCAA, which were a team at the time that were great champions back in the 1950s when they became the Elite Eight tournament in 55 and 56, but sadly, they didn't get nothing done after that, after becoming the Little Three of 1947, 1950, and 52, and 56 and 57 from the American East. They barely became the 1985, and, well, of course, by their final year, they did become the conference regular season champions in 1994, and by 1996, they would become the conference tournament champion as well that year. They wouldn't do it again until 2018, so it kind of stinks that they had to end their career, but at least they ended it with a bang, even though they didn't do it in the auditorium, because 1995 was the last year that they were there until a year later. So, so it's too bad that they didn't become the conference champion in 95. They did do it in 94, but not 95, but they did in 96. So it is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. And yeah, you just hate to see it. You just hate to see it. Just hate to see it. But guys, there was a lot of notable events with a lot of great moments to talk about. There's a lot of interesting history, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about this event. And I could talk about it all day. Talking about the Los Angeles Lakers defeating the New Jersey Nets back in 1988 by a tough exhibition fights of a 105-93. Or the time when the New York Knicks defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers in a 96-93 score in October the next year. Or even the time when the Chicago Bulls had against Miami Heat in 99. Or even when the Celtics defeated Washington Bullets. But don't forget about the New York Knicks and the Denver Nuggets in October 17th, 1995, which would be a month later after this event. And that's crazy. And crazy as I say, guys, because, guys, they even had other moments in the sport known as the Buffalo Sabres. Because, guys, the Buffalo Sabres had their own moments in life because they were conference champions in around the 1975 and 1980, but they never did it again until 99, unfortunately, years after its closing. And like they were division champions during the 70s and 80s, and they did become division champions again in 96 and 97 season, but it's just too bad they had to go to a new building as well. And to be honest, it's pretty tough to see this building come to an end because, guys, when the camera crew gets us closer, they show us the flags, the colors, and then they show us the letters of the auditorium and such, which is, it's just kind of sad that this was coming to an end, that they were recording this before the end of its year. They had their great moments. Like, heck, even Jim Crockett Promotion already debuted the venue back in July of 1980 when it headlined Ric Flair and Sweet Ebony Diamond defeating Greg Valentine and the Iron Sheik. That's crazy. And fun fact, in June the 2nd, 1987 is when the Honky Tonk Man defeated Ricky the Steamboat to become the WWF Intercontinental Champion on the WWF Superstars of Wrestling that year in the same venue. That's ridiculous. And of course, Cesar Charles did fought for his heavyweight title in 1950 against Freddie Beshore, and having also another like a junior welterweight title in 84 known as the upset of the year of Gene Hatcher defeating Johnny Bumpus. And also Livingstone Bramble defeats Ray Mancini in June that same night as well, which was the guy that actually ended a South Korean boxer's life and changed boxing forever. Yeah, Livingstone passed away this year, which is unfortunate. And also, this is the moment when Hector Camacho became the NABF lightweight champion in 85, and Tony Tubbs defeating Greg Page to hold on to become the WBA heavyweight champion that year in April 29th, 1985. Well, technically, I wouldn't say that's actually all that facts, I would say, because he was the champion. Greg Page was the champion, even though he was an underdog. So, yeah, seeing it come to an end like this is tough enough. It really is. Yeah, it's tough enough to look at all the information that you talk about this building because it was built in 1940. And guys, they even told us, our commentator buddy here tells us that the auditorium was built in 1940, home of the Buffalo Sabres, as it is. And with the odd, it will be the fist with everything else happening. And at this moment, it's just tough to watch this event come to an end a year later. It was tough. So our buddy Bruce Beck is, well, I guess he's in the new commentary. He tells us that it's been 7 weeks after our trip to Casper, Wyoming, and, well, we're back for UFC 7. And with one of the best events of all time, the competitors understand why the event is called the Ultimate Fighting Champion, because tonight we've got fighters from 5 different countries and representing 14 different disciplines. Actually, we only have 10 of them that are competing. Or in reality, well, let's not talk about it. So he tells us about, we have our championship match for Shamrock and Tokhtarov, champion, about UFC 6. And then he gives us our new broadcast team, remembering of the 1984 gold medalist of the Olympics, Jeff Blatnick. And this time, Jeff Blatnick enters the ring, and he comes out, someone locks him in, telling everyone, as he always does, standing in the battleground, we have a 32-inch, measured 32 feet across the octagon, surrounding 5-foot-high chain-link fences, both heavily padded, reinforced with 2 doors that both have deadlocks on them, and the footing is firm and fast, perhaps greatest. The greatest feature in the octagon is intangible. The effect it has on fighter physique. To walk in alone and hear that deadbolt clang shut and locked, but the opponent staring at you, perhaps. As your first timers come into this, it is a situation where it's hard for them to stay relaxed and calm. Thus, and by the way, as he was about to talk, there was actually a moment where I think he actually almost had a heart attack for some reason, because he actually missed, he actually kind of exhaled his breath for some reason because he was actually talking too much. But yet again, he's actually explaining the rules properly, better than Nancy Grace. But of course, he tells us how the experience becomes a tremendous commodity. Even the effects of some of the most experienced fighters, like Canadian Harold Howard, one of our fighters here tonight, perhaps sums it up best. I quote, "It's a great rush, and it makes your sphincter get real tight. In my mind, that gives the phrase pucker up a whole new meaning." Back to you, Bruce. Well, that's pretty great. At least Harold Howard's putting something into that. it does upset me, guys, because Harold Howard, I've already talked about Harold Howard and how he actually fought in August against a guy named Hugo Duarte, which ended in 29 seconds in Japan when Hugo ended his career. Yeah, well, guess what? I've already talked about 3 out of 4 of his fights in his career, and this is going to be the last one that Harold Howard I'm going to review for him. It's going to be sad, guys, because Howard's career was so different from this. Watching this fight, just so bad that he didn't bring a lot into it. But of course, you know what even makes this moment worse? I couldn't realize it, but Jim Brown is not the commentary anymore. That's sad. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we make our transition to throw everything, please, to introduce our newest member of the broadcast team. And then they show us fight footage of a 1983 World Light Heavyweight title bout in Las Vegas. And it states for 17 years, he was one of the premier kickboxers of the planet with 12 world titles in 4 different weight divisions. 3-time he was named Fighter of the Year and has made marvelous transition from fighter to film star, making 18 movies. And considering I have seen a couple of his movies, which are not bad, you know who he's talking about. From Blood Fist to Batman Forever, they call him the Dragon, Don Wilson. And I'll say though, guys, it's great to have someone new in commentary here, but it is sad that there's no more original commentaries in UFC 1 after this. It just really upsets me there. Sad. The only person that's still an active person that's still original in UFC 1 is Ken Shamrock. Sad. So, of course, he tells everyone it's great to have it, it's great to be here. And then he talks about the intrigues so Bruce tells him, what intrigues you about the UFC? And then he says, well, I'm a fight fan. There's no place in the world where all the different styles of fighting can occur under one roof except the UFC. And then he tells us, well, for the last few days, we've talked about every fighter. What do you think of this group overall and the quality of the field, Don? And Don replies, well, I'm very impressed with their experience. I mean, these guys have trained for over a year and a half. Some of them were trained for this event. And to impress, there's a thing to impress. And I could say, is their attitude to these guys have come to win? And they got the strongest wills I've ever come up against. And then Bruce comes in and tells him, well, there's a lot of different disciplines here, so many different names of, if the Dragon were to get in the octagon, what would your discipline be? And he just says it. Well, I just say just defend though, because it's a punishment to be dealt out, and I'll be looking to defend myself more than anything. And that's about it. And we come out and Bruce Beck comes in and takes over the commentary, and then he shows us the alternate bouts of who won the fight. But at this moment, there's nothing to say about it anymore because there's no one else. We have Big John McCarthy in the screen, the LAPD cop. It's great to see him again, and he's into UFC 7 wearing a shirt titled UFC 7. We have Leon Tabbs, the cut man. He is going to be in competition. He is the Philadelphia city of brotherly love. And then we also have our medical of Dr. Richard of the ISO. It's great to see him. I hope he doesn't have any problems for this live event, even after the Gaza Common fight. And of course, Ron Van Cleef of the IFC. It's great to see him smile to the camera, and he is not just known as the Dragon, he is the Black Dragon, Bruce Beck says to the audience. Which is kind of okay. He makes many judgments regarding the UFC, an absolute gentleman, a superb fighter, as he went to the octagon at age 52. I don't think you have to tell us that. So the odds of the octagon are no biting, eye gouging, referee can restart the fight, and we have 20-minute matches in the quarterfinals, semifinals, 30-minute fights in the super fight, and the finals. We have a 5-minute overtime in those title fights. The fights will end in knockout, submission, corner throw and towel, and most importantly, referee can stop the contest and DQ. We do have DQs, guys. Keep that in mind. So the tournament starts out, ladies and gentlemen, as this. We have Gary Harris versus Paul Varens, Mark Hall versus Harold Howard, Remco Pardo, that was in UFC 2. Great to see him back again, taking on Ryan Parker. And then we have Marco Ruiz and Larry Kutin. So at this moment, this is an interesting, underrated lineup. Like, it's great to see Remco Pardo come back. Mark Hall is in this competition with Paul Varens and such. So, and with Harold Howard coming back at this moment is because this was a big deal for him to come back, just like Remco Pardo. So it makes you wonder if the veterans can actually do a better job than they did in their first meeting back in 1994. So I do find that really interesting, is what makes this moment underrated. They talk about the super fight champion, and then we go to Michael Buffer, where he tells us, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the War Memorial Auditorium here in the home of the Buffalo Bills, Buffalo, New York. It's not the Buffalo Bills. It's the Buffalo Sabres. Not the hockey team, the hockey team. And they don't do hut in NFL football or football. It's hockey. The hockey. Keep that in mind. We're not home of the Buffalo Bills, Michael. Guys, it's kind of weird that Michael Buffer made a huge mistake thinking the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium was home of the Buffalo Bills, which is ridiculous. But I guess Michael Buffer is more of an NFL fan than an NHL fan, so I can't hate him for that. But it's funny that this is 30 years in the past, and I'm listening to this, and he says Buffalo Bills. That's awesome. So tonight, see, the Sports Corporation presents the ultimate in excitement, the ultimate in war, the ultimate in martial arts, the Ultimate Fighting Championship 7. And guys, at this moment, as he says this, the two fighters are already in the ring, so pretty much can't say much about the ring entrances, but that doesn't matter. And as he even tells us that the 8 of the world's toughest men will come into the octagon tonight, and at the end, only one shall emerge. And with victorious, plus later this evening, we have the Russian Bear and the Rock, which is awesome. And as he says that, we have a woman in a black bikini holding up the karate ring card sign, walks past Michael Buffer. I'm like, why is she not wearing a thong? That stinks. And we get to the offense champion, and of course she is wearing an interesting shirt, which is awesome. He also says that, well, technically it's interesting that how people present Tarov's name. He also says that there are no weight classes, no rounds, there are no time limits. Assigned it at the octagon, at the side of the octagon, our official physician, Dr. Richard. Yes, blah, 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 blah. We don't have to talk about that. We don't have to talk about that. And as he's rambling about the other stuff that we've already saw, we have another beautiful ring card girl, this time with the word trap fighting, pretty much, wearing the similar shirt the other way he's wearing, but she's wearing an American bikini. And I was saying to myself, you better walk behind. You better. And then I look at it, and she's barely wearing not much of a thong. But it's actually cute to wear. I really like the bikini she's wearing. Yeah. But anyway, he tells us, as the woman is leaving the ring, he says, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Buffalo, New York, are you ready? Let's get ready to rumble! The fans are loving it. The fans are loving it. I love it too. And of course, he introduced to the fighters, at 38 years old, we have our oldest competitor in the UFC, Gary Harris, 6'8", just like Paul Varens. He's 6'8" as well, but only for Gary, he's 260, and Paul is 300, so we don't have to worry. And also, he's actually wearing black pants, black shirts, so pretty much. Paul Varens Paul Varyn. Well, to be honest, it's interesting because I tried to get close on what shirt Gary was wearing, but it was hard for me to understand what he was wearing. But whatever it was saying, um, Paul Varyn is wearing that similar shirt he wore, only wearing a little bit of an ugly suit, which is I can't explain it. So yeah, as he represents a fighter, we get to tell the tape. Yep, like I said before, this or that. So technically, there wasn't much to this. And of course, as the fight starts, guys, both fighters do not walk towards each other with the referee telling them the instructions. They just stay where they are. Referee tells them, "Are you ready? Ready?" As just like all the other, just from UFC 2, "Are you ready? Fight." And the fight starts in the first tournament, and Paul Varyn attacks on Gary, and Gary's getting out of a headlock to him. Paul is pushing him to the cage and brings him down. And at this moment, the first fight just ends so rapidly. And guys, I'm not going to talk about the commentaries as much because I actually keep forgetting who the person is talking because I keep forgetting that. I keep forgetting to write notes on who's talking and who's not talking. I guess I keep forgetting every time I watch a match, I forget out of the top of my head. So I'm not going to get to that. So, of course, we get some weaknesses and this or that. And Paul Varyn, after about 30 or so seconds or 40 seconds, he finally gets on top of Gary. He's throwing punches right to his noggin here. And then he goes to the other side, punches him again, throws out more punches again over and over. Like he's on top of him and part of the back. And then the fight comes to an end where the guy falls off to his belly. He taps out after getting multiple punches thrown right into him, and before you know it, he taps out at 1 minute and 7 seconds of the fight, which was a good start for the first fight on show if you don't talk about the alternate bouts. And for some reason, Paul Varyn decides to do a cartwheel somersault kickflip, almost like Harold Howard did in UFC 3, which is surprisingly. Also, they also call him the polar bear. Interesting. Pretty much. And even the commentator points out that he emerges from hibernation and he has won his first bout. Well, it's not going to be his last bout, but is he actually going to win the tournament? We're going to have to find that out sooner enough. So, yeah, 1 minute and 7 seconds of the fight. At least Michael Buffer got that right. We announced the winner, and that's it. So, the first fight was pretty decent for what it was, and I will say though, it brought in a lot of great excitement into what it is. So I will give them credit. They did a good job, the replay and such. It was pretty decent for what it is, actually. Oh. Sorry about that, guys. Got interrupted. Alright, I better stop again. Okay, so for the second match, ladies and gentlemen, at this moment, we get the matchup of Mark Hall against UFC veteran Harold Howard, and they show us a picture. Mark Hall looks like a WCW or almost like an ECW type wrestler. I can't remember what his face is, and for some weird reason, Harold Howard shaved his entire beard and mustache, which he did not do a year later when he took on Hugo in 96. He almost looks like with part of his hair without his mustache and beard and his attitude. I thought he was like a serial killer in UFC 3, but he almost looks like Greg the Hammer Valentine, which is kind of weird. Harold Howard's facial expression without him with a clean baby face, it's so weird. I didn't really like the look on what Harold Howard's expression looked because he looked more good looking because he almost looked like he was Marv from Home Alone, only with his hair being really, really blonde, but not picky like Daniel Stern's hair was. So, but still, I kind of felt bad. I don't know why he got rid of this hair color or something. It's really bad. Also, they also show us the ring Carter girl again, and of course all fighters are in the ring. They enter the ring, but I guess I'm watching a different version of this. We have a woman with the ring card girl holding jiu-jitsu, and she has an interesting color of a beautiful, shiny bikini thong. which I hope it was a thong, and I think the cameraman fall because as they cut to Mark Hall on camera to another camera, the cameraman's looking at her, and then the camera goes up a split second, and then it cuts a split second away to our buddy that's 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, at 34 years old, named Mark Hall. So I don't know what happened to the cameraman that fell back like that and put his camera up in the sky. It was so ridiculous. And then we have another ring card girl that walked past Mark Hall as the announcer announces him wearing a beautiful black thong. Dude, that's respect. And it shows the woman walking, holding on to the card that Harold Howard is, and dang, at least someone is wearing a thong. That's great. And then as I'm typing this in, we get Harold Howard and his weird baby face, like 2-day beard, Don John. I don't know what that look is. They call him a Goju third degree Goju black belt. And guys, Harold Howard's look and his facial expression is, I did not like his facial. Guys, I do not like his facial expression, not one bit. It's so weird. Guys, Harold Howard's facial expression is so, like, he is not the guy that I thought he was. When watching this UFC 7, I thought he was going to have the same look and the same deadliness, but after looking at his baby face and his weird haircut being like the brother of Greg the Hammer Valentine, I can understand why Mark Hall defeated him. Yeah, I don't have to spoil it. He defeated Harold Howard. And I guess that makes sense how a year later, his career came to an end in Tokyo, Japan. I can't believe what I just saw. That was so bummer. I was really upset that this was the Harold Howard that we were looking at. And I just felt really depressed and sad reviewing this. So the fight ends lasting under 2 minutes. Well, 1 minute and 41 seconds. And the fight starts out with Harold bouncing like a bunny, getting close in. Like he's going forward on the Mark. Mark is on the defensive side, holding on. They're both unorthodox. And by the way, they're both barefooted, just like the first fight with Paul Varens and Gary Harris. They're both barefoot as well. Of course, Harold Howard has a white shirt on black shorts. Black pants for Mark, but no shirt. Keep that in mind. First person shirtless. Harold comes in, attacks him. He tries to put him down on the ground, and Mark Hall wants none of it. He grabs Harold by the hair at one point, and then he tries to put him down and just finally gets him down to the cage. And then for some reason, Hall finally goes under, and now he's on top, trying to put some hold on him, and he punches Harold, and Harold is trying to hold on, but then he lets go of the hold, and Mark finally tries to put some punches in, and Harold is trying to grab. I don't know what Harold Howard's idea was, because, guys, watching his first fight in UFC 3 before he lost against Steve Jenham was questioned. And then as we get a far upper camera view down to the ground, Harold's mouth is bleeding. He's already bleeding to the mouth at this moment. And then Mark grabs him in the back of the head again. And we're at 1 minute and 10 seconds where the UFC clock appears right here at 1 minute and 10 seconds. The mouth is bleeding on Harold Howard. He's trying to get a grab onto him, but he's not getting nothing done. I don't know what Harold Howard's idea was after everything that he went through in the first fight. And then the camera cuts way down low. And when I'm saying that the cameraman, guys, pretend that I'm the cameraman in the rafters and I'm filming this. The camera, guys, pretend that the cameraman is filming from the rafters and filming down. That's what the camera angle is showing. The camera is zooming in more closely to Harold Howard's face. His shirt, his white shirt is all mixed up with blood. He's almost smiling like he's Mick Foley from Mankind and WWE and the 98 King of the Ring show with him and The Undertaker, where they said that he was smiling with one of his tooth stuck up his nose. When in reality, Mankind, Mick Foley did tell us that he wasn't smiling. He was just but that's what Harold Howard face is this. Like, his face is bloody. He's smiling, breathing out, or breathing in so much. And then the fight ends at 141, where Mark Hall is finally trying to throw punches. I think he was trying to choke him or something. And he puts his body right into the fence. and Harold is giving up, and before you know it, it's over. That's the end of his career. And John McCarthy gets Mark off of him, and Mark celebrates. And it didn't take long for Harold to finally get back up a second later, but yeah, Harold tapped down, and that was it. It's just so shocking that these first matches were just so brutal. The clock did say 142, but on Wikipedia it said 141, so take that for what you will. But of course, Mark walks up to Harold. They both hit their hands, congratulate each other. They both hug it out in the ring, which is kind of great. And Harold grabs Mark's arm for the winner. And the fans in the audience are, guys, the fan in the audience, like, guys, none of the fans are that exciting. Like, people in the background are just standing there. There's a couple people clapping, but nothing much. But like the first matches are ending quickly, but pretty much the next two matches in the quarterfinals are gonna end. Well, to be honest, guys, they did show us a replay when Harold did take Mark down. Fans in the audience did stood up. But when the match ended, they just sit back down. I don't think no one was expecting Harold Howard to lose this fight, but after his facial expression, babyface look, I just didn't really see it that good. And with everything going on right now, it is bad talking about everything else. The commentators do talk about the other stuff and about everything else, being a wrestler in high school and played football and baseball and 5-0 amateur fights and such. I think they were talking about Harold Howard or something, or Mark Hall. I don't know who they were talking about. The commentators were talking about something, but I wasn't really paying attention. I was only paying attention to the fight because at this moment, I'm done with the commentary team. And I felt bad that Jim Brown was there. Guys, I'm not saying that I don't like everything about everyone when it comes to UFC 7. It does stink that Jim Brown was not the commentary team anymore. It is what it is, but yet again, it is bad enough already, to say the least. Oh my gosh, what the heck was that? I don't know what I clicked on there. That was weird. But yeah, by the way, they also show us a quarterback named Jim Kelly of the Bills, which is even hilarious. Outside of the ring. Of course, the quarterfinal, we have Ryan Parker and Remco Pardol. This fight is a doozy. And like I said before, guys, like I said before, I'm not going to hate on everyone. I do love Don Wilson. Interesting character and a good person. So I can't hate him much about that. He's a good person. Is he my favorite commentary than Jim Brown? That's up to you to decide. So, of course, two of the other ring card girls comes back to the ring. And we have Remco Pardol and Ryan Parker, and they are into the octagon. I love that they showed us the record of Remco being 2-1 record of MMA, which is actually a rarity. I really love that. I think they did that to Harold Howard, but still, I actually love that they show us the record of how many wins they have in MMA, which is probably for the best because it might be turning into a major event sooner than later. And guess what? In today's world, UFC 7 might be the first time that they ever showed veteran UFC fighters with their winning record. Not bad. By the way, they also have another woman wearing some green type bikini with some yellow out brown like polka dot leopard type something, whatever they were wearing. Interesting. I don't know what that woman was wearing. It was ridiculous. Also, Remco Pardol was a young person, around 26 years old. His opponent almost, his beard almost had an interesting type look into him. He almost looked like a real, he almost looked like Steve Blackman. Ryan Parker looked like Steve Blackman. Only with his hair, it should have been a lot more different, but he almost had another interesting look. Not like Stone Cold Steve Austin or the Horse Hogan look in 2000, but still interesting, with a hair still. But yeah, they're both in their mid 20s, which is great to see young talent. And both of them are wearing karate suits, white and black belt straps to each other. So it's hard for me to know who's who, except Remco is a baby faced and Ryan has beard and mustache. The fight starts out with Remco getting put into the cage and he's now throwing back punches to the back of the head, which is ridiculous. And of course, we're getting some legs and twisted and locks, this or that. And then Remco actually gets a good hook on and puts him to the ground. And then we get some interesting punches and works into the round. And surprisingly, we're getting some interesting offensive work. And of course, there were moments where I thought they were fiddling with each other's hands or for some reason. I don't know. And at this moment, because they already point out that they're already looking for a submission move here, as Remco is already working on Parker and trying to take a slow hold on him, like choking him a little bit. I, for what reason he's trying to go for a little bit of a, like he was actually doing a smothering him right now. He's trying to put a submission of him of smothering him. And at this moment, we're 2 minutes into the match and finally get some legs twitching for some reason. And surprisingly, John McCarthy was doing a good job for what he was doing, actually. And then we come to like 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the match, and it has with John McCarthy keeping an eye on what's happening. And at this moment, we get a surprising hold here. He's not just smothering him, but he's also putting in another hold known as the lapé choke, which is also another word for a smother choke. Which is actually like, guys, a lapé choke is so different where you're on top of your opponent and you're putting your arms, you're putting him, and it's actually a really it's not much of a dangerous move when you look at it from afar, but when you look it up close and the person that's getting taken, like the lapé choke is a little bit of a deadly combination where a guy might get choked out easily. It's not a fun move. It's not. And as we get to the 3 minute mark, Ryan's hand is finally moving. He finally gets his right hand from under away from him. And then the match ends where at the 3 minute and 5 second mark, he's trying to grab Remco away from him, but he was just suffering too much, so he taps out, and that's the end of the fight. Remco Pardo, I will say though, guys, it is interesting that Ken Shamrock pointed him out as being the future when he saw his performance in UFC 2. So it's great to see Remco perform again at this stage, even though when he did lose against, well, he lost against Royce Gracie in the semifinals, I think he did. I think he did. Yes, he lost against Royce Gracie in the semifinals by a lapé choke, which is kind of funny for me to remember that. But I will say though, guys, Remco Pardo's MMA career is so different than other people that I just feel bad that he didn't get a lot of credit for his career. So they announced the winner of the fight. Congratulations. They show a replay of the great takedown that Remco did on our buddy Steve Blackman. Now he has a 3-0-1 record, 3-1 record, and that's about it. It's weird that when Royce Gracie was in UFC, they didn't show us a record. So it's great they showed us here. Now we have two newcomers of Marco Ruiz and Larry Cruton. And then they show us, as they show us the tail of the tape or the names on the board, which are both just guys. They cut to the camera of two ring card girls waiting for their cue, holding up the sign. The camera gets close to them, but then they back away because it's censored. They want to censor the stuff. Cuts back to Michael Buffer. Referee Big John McCarthy introduce our six players in competition, or both guys 6 feet tall. We get Marco Ruiz and Larry. Wait, what's his name? Curtin. By the way, guys, Larry's last name is spelled Cureton. So I think his last name is Curtin. It has to be Curtin. It is Curtin. It is Curtin because even the commentators pointed that out, and even Michael Buffer said his name Curtin. I'm an idiot. Oh, I'm an idiot. By the way, they also have another ring card girl, this time wearing a pink thong. Fully perfect. Like triangle shape there. That's what her thong was, a pink thong. I love it. We need more of those girls in real life. And then it shows another woman also wearing a black thong. Straight like that. Perfect. I love it. Well, more like that. So pretty much, guys, this fight, I can't say much about this. Both guys are 6 feet tall. Marco Ruiz, it's actually interesting. So Curtin is 35 years old, 6 feet 2, 248 pounds. 210 pounds, 6'1". Marco Ruiz is a Vale Tudo fighter against a kickboxing fighter of Curtin. But here's the thing. His age is in question mark. So we don't know how old Marco Ruiz at that time in 1995 because his age is in question marks. But of course, when I looked him up on Wikipedia, it does show that he was born in January the 23rd, 1961. Meaning that he's 34 years old. Pretty much. So, for what that is, it is surprising. So he's actually 34 years old at this time, but as of 1995, we don't know how old he is. All we know is unknown age, 38 pounds less of a disadvantage of Curtin, and that's all you have to know about this. So we come into the set here, ladies and gentlemen, and at this moment, this is a moment where I'm going to take a break. So Curtin is wearing out blackout trunk shorts, and of course, Marco is wearing blackout underwear. And the fight starts out with him putting in an unbelievable slam. Like, when I say, like for some reason, it was so scary. He picks him up. He, for some reason, Curtin is trying to choke him out, trying to put a headlock on him, and Marco picks him up like nothing. 38 pounds of a disadvantage, putting on a choke, and picks up this heavy dude and just slams him to the ground and does a little bit of a cartwheel type on him and just gets out of it. And it's just a crazy moment. It's like, this has to be the craziest moment of the entire match here, and I can understand why this was an awesome fight to watch. But I wasn't really expecting much about Marco Ruiz other than he is a Brazilian person. I do know that Brazilian fighters are that dangerous. So he's in the bottom trying to hold a choke on. He's holding Curtin a lot better than Harold Howard is. Curtin is getting to the fence, grabbing onto the fence, holding for dear life, getting choked on in the first minute. And as they're trying to hold it on, he finally lets go and tries to put his arm right into the neck of Marco. And surprisingly, it was actually a scary situation where both guys were actually seemed like they were going to get hurt. And I was actually looking for blood or something. But nothing much there. So after they pointed it out, guys, we come to a 2-minute mark. Around 2 minutes and 20 seconds of the bout. Both guys are still stuck into the fence, and considering Marco is already trying to hold him off as best he could to survive this part, because at this moment, both guys are about to be at the 3-minute mark sooner than later, but how long is the fight going to last? So they roll him off to the fence, and with everything going on, John is making sure both fighters are doing okay, because at this moment, Marco is getting his body pushed to the fence. But then, before the 3-minute mark, Larry gets off of him and then gets on top of him, trying to grab him on, put him on a hold or something. He puts both of his hands and his fingers to the fence here, while both Marco's legs are on top and just trying to put some move on him. And then he takes his left foot and kicks Larry right into the chin, which is a scary move. And he's putting on a straight kick there, and as he's hooking his leg, facing it, like, at this moment, Marco finally has his right leg, twists it, and gets Larry's left leg stuck while Larry's body is standing up. Like, he's standing up. That's ridiculous. This is one of the craziest submission moves I've ever seen. And then we come to the 3 minute mark, and as the match comes to an end, Larry is trying to stay up, but then he finally falls down barely by brick to brick from his leg to his buttocks to his body. Finally hits the ground. He's trying to grab the fence. Part of his left leg is getting twisted, which is known as a heel hook submission. Marco puts on the heel hook and he hurts him so much, rakes his leg so much that Larry had to tap out at 2:23 of the match. John gets off of him. It was a scary situation. It was, oh boy. And I can understand why this was known as the submission of the night, which is crazy, calling it submission of the night, because this was a shocker. This was actually a really scary moment here, but seeing how Marco managed to recover from that started it. They give us the replay of how the first moment started. We're seeing a when Larry was putting on a headlock on Marco, and then Marco picks him up with a crotch, pretending to be Hulk Hogan, body slamming Andre the Giant, and then we see the background of fans barely visible in screaming of amazement. The crowd were barely hot for this match. Like, I will say though, this was actually one amazing moment of the entire show here, which is, and they show us the replay of Marco ripping off his leg and Larry falling brick by brick and finally taps out. Like, it was a dirty submission. That's how wild it was. I don't know what to say about it. It was actually scary enough to say the least. And we only have 4 matches left on the show. Crazy. So the next match on the show, ladies and gentlemen, is Mark Hall versus Paul Behrens. At this moment, ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment when the sport changes. So we get our introduced fighters. Both of these guys have went around a minute to under 2 minutes. Paul Behrens is already with a record of 2 wins and 1 loss right now, which is great to say that, but still, is it good enough for him to be in the rankings? Depending on if he has what it takes to take on Remco Pardol, because at this moment, they're both on a dangerous collision course here. Seriously, because that's what we're seeing here. Because both guys are... I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about this. Like, Paul Behrens and Mark Hall were not in the ring that much in the fight. But considering this is a semifinal bout, one of them would actually get a good thing going. Like, Mark Hall and Paul Behrens... Like, I can't say much about this fight for what it is. And of course, they show us our ring card girls again. And I love that the cameraman finally, when the woman passes the cameraman finally gets the money shot there, which is funny. And then we get another camera shot of a woman with a silver bikini thong shaped like this. And of course, that's about it. And also, the differences of weight is interesting. So Hall is 34, 6 feet, 190 pounds against Behrens that's 300 pounds, 6'8", 25 years old. Guys, the weight differential in today's world, we have to bring back... Guys, I'm glad that weight classes are now a thing in the world, because that is a huge disadvantage for Mark Hall. He had no chance of winning this fight. The fight starts out with him trying to throw kicks, but then Paul puts his full body on him, bodies him to the fence, and that's about it. And then he puts a move on him, doesn't get a cartwheel on him, but he sure got him. He got him there, and he holds him. He puts his a headlock on him, and it was just his body was too big and too tall, and Mark is trying to put his legs to grab him, but his legs are too short. He finally pushes away to the fence, but Mark had no chance of winning this fight in a million years. The fight comes to an end when Paul puts on a key lock submission. As we get to the minute mark of it, he grabs in the key lock, and then Mark taps out at 1 minute and 4 seconds of the fight. Or as, well, technically, but both guys hug it out, and as both guys hug it out, we have our buddies and trainers with him, and that's about it. So, yeah, this fight was such a huge mismatch. Guys, just watching this match back, this was just a mismatch of competition here. Like, guys, Paul Varens got so dang lucky in this entire match that it just made me wonder. Like, he went 1 minute and 7 seconds against Gary Harris, and then 1 minute and 4 seconds against Mark Hall. And at this moment, Remco and Marco went 3 minutes in their fight. So it's just so tough to watch that. I just couldn't enjoy watching a fight when it came down to that. Because, guys, Paul Varens was just too big. But surprisingly, guys, the next matches on this show are going to be... you viewers are probably wondering, why did UFC 7 win overtime in their 3-hour mark? Because we're 5 matches into this show, and the matches have went 1 minute to 3 minute matches. So how did we not see the final match on TV? Well, that explains it about Marco Ruiz and Remco Pardol. They didn't go a minute. They didn't go 3 minutes. They didn't go 5 minutes. They went over 10 minutes in the semifinals. Who won the match? We might as well find out because I have to get my food. I'll be back in just a second so we can talk about this later. Anyway. All right, so we're back, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So, anyway, guys. So, after barely just no more than probably 40 minutes of production right now, the real story comes in perfectly. Guys, this is the moment when UFC 7 changed. This bout right here was a recipe for disaster from the first day. Here. Remco Pardol versus Marco Ruiz became the first match that things were about to happen. And of course, guys, our ring card girls is a woman with all black, everything else, but that's how big it is. And a woman with the American bikini. Guys, hey, I know I love it, guys. I'm sorry for talking too much about it. Guys, I love women in thongs. I love thongs. I love bikinis. I love swimsuit. I love bathing, swimming suit, thongs. I love it. And by the way, this is my show, so I can do whatever I want to. Not perverted. I just like it. I like girls in thongs. I love girls. I love women. I love thongs. So get used to it. Get used to it. Anyway, guys. So, of course, our age differences, guys. So, Pardol, as said before, he's 26. And, of course, Ruiz, he's 34 years old at the time. But who knows, back in 1995. Only this time, he's 45 pounds lesser than our Netherlands fighter, Pardol. So, considering one is from Brazil and the other is from Netherlands, at this moment, this was going to be a recipe for what MMA fighting was going to do, because this was the moment where things were going to change for good because of it. Because this first match, that would become the recipe for disaster. So both guys are studying each other. Remco's taller than Marco. Marco starting out with throwing bottom kicks to the leg. And then Remco throws one and then grabs him, puts him to the fence. And at this moment, Marco gets headlocked. Like he's getting locked to the head with a choke. Like we're getting a little bit of a rear naked choke here with Remco putting his left foot, trying to make him fall. Like at this moment, like he's putting on a huge guillotine choke, like putting his body to the fence, and Marco is just holding for dear life. getting grabbed and his leg getting caught to Remco, and like the first minute of the fight, like to be, it's not the first minute of the fight, it's around the first almost like 2 minutes of the fight. They go from fence to fence, from corner to corner, from each octagon, slams it here, and then picks him up, and then Remco slams him again to the other side, and like, man, this fight was a recipe for wildness, because this moment right here, ladies and gentlemen, is what made it just crazy. And then Marco tries to get out of it as best as he could, but the rear naked choke, like, I was surprised that he was holding on for that long. And it seemed like Remco was really trying to give him a hard time. And I think Remco didn't know that this guy had more energy left in him. But here's the thing. It seemed like Remco knew that because Paul Behrens went 2 minutes and 2 fights of 1 minute for each, he wanted to end it slowly without not getting tired or hurt. Not realizing that they would be in the ring for over 12 minutes. Yeah, 12 minutes. And all that time putting in the rear naked choke was a complete waste of time for Remco. Because all that time and all that rear naked choke hold on him and just locking him up. Because we come to the 4 minute and 30-second mark, and he finally tries to grab off to his leg while still putting that naked chokehold. He goes to other leg from first leg. He goes to right leg, picks up his left leg. He's trying to wrap him up, but Marco wants none of it. He's trying to make sure that he doesn't lock his leg up. We get to the 5-minute mark, and they're both in the same exact position. And Remco is just trying to give him a hard time to give up. Remco is doing everything he can. Like, both guys might be tired at this moment, and they gotta be careful because they have one match left in the tournament final, and Paul Behrens might win. But as we get to the 6-minute mark, we finally get a dive down, and Remco finally gets a pull on him, and they both go down. And then he lets go and then puts his leg onto him and then barely gets him wrapped around. And as we get to the 6-minute mark, Marco is finally barely on top of him, part of his legs spread around, and Remco's spreading his legs, and they're both holding each other as best they can. And keep this in mind, Remco is still wearing his karate uniform while Marco is still naked with only wearing black boxing gear on, or MMA gear that we have today. And then at the 7-minute mark, he finally puts in the Ric Flair submission hold and finally grabs, and now both guys are grabbing each other's hands and holding themselves. They go left hand, right hand, and they both grab their hand. They go the other side. And by the way, guys, did I forget to mention that everyone is barefooted in the tournament? Did I actually forgot to mention who's the orthodox and who is the southpaw fighter? Not really, because technically the fight started out so quickly that I don't even know who is southpaw and who's orthodox.
Also just didn't
no one's perfect.
He gassed out.
But yeah, this fight goes on so much. And there was one moment where Remco is getting his karate gear grabbed on for one moment against Marco. And then finally he gets in the sitting up position while Marco is next to the fence area. And then he finally lets go. And then finally goes on standing on his knees at the 9-minute mark.
So let's see what
and
it's made of now.
At this moment, I see one of the ring card girl ladies actually having her hand like this, but some of them are like, some people might not be entertained by this, which I don't blame them. At this moment, they're just waiting for the right opportunity to go for their move, and that's what they're doing.
Injuries, people have trained before they've even sparred. Loads of things going on.
So
that's how you perform on fight night. But
at the 10-minute mark,
you know,
again,
you get in this position where you feel like you're making excuses for fighters.
Nothing is barely happening.
And he didn't deliver. And realistically, he was
both
a
guys
very experienced amateur. And he's been a prospect, really.
Are studying each other.
For quite a while and not really.
And they're getting themselves locked into each other. And like I said before, Remco is not trying to spread his legs. And Marco is trying to hold off his legs or something. I think he was trying to go for an interesting position. But then as we get to the moment, he finally stands up. He grabs onto Remco's legs in a weird fashion. It was almost like he was trying to spread Remco's legs. He was trying to spread his legs while grabbing onto part of his pants legs, of his karate gear, of his pants legs. It was such a weird, it was one of the most weirdest positions I've ever seen in an MMA fight, that I don't know what Marco Ruiz's strategy was. And I actually forgot what the commentator said, because I wasn't really paying attention to the commentators that night, because I was upset that Jim Brown wasn't there. So that was that. I only paid attention to the beginning part, but not the fights. But yeah. But then at 11 minutes and 25 seconds, Marco makes a huge turnaround and tries to go for a mounted position. Or I think it was a mounted position. He puts his right knee, hits him with his knee a couple times. Remco is trying to grab on, not letting go, but he just couldn't find the right grasp, the right grip. Marco puts on the mounted position on him. And at 12 minutes and 27 seconds, after all of that waste of time in the first 6 minutes of Remco trying to end it slowly, he gets on the mountain position, and Remco taps out as he gets on top of him. And I don't know what happened. But there is one thing I did remember writing down, because the commentators were confused as well. Because one of them actually said that I don't know if he was just physically wore down or he was choked. Because one of the commentators did say that I didn't see a choke, and I did not see a choke. There was no choke. Which was interesting. They told us the time was 12 minutes and 27 seconds, so there was some stuff I did remember the commentator saying, but I don't know who said it. I think it was Bruce Beck, but still, I wasn't paying attention as much. But yeah, 12 minutes and 27 seconds. Guys, Remco Pardo's strategy was to end the fight slowly and give Marco a hard time. Guys, Marco went 3 minutes and 23 seconds in the first fight to triple that to 12:27.
But for getting performance, his personality,
I don't know what to say about that. That's just ridiculous. It's even ridiculous to even talk about it right now, because I was never expecting a fight like that to be a thing. Believe me, guys, the last two fights on the show are going to be a little bit longer.
And, this is how you command attention. This is how you make people give a fuck. And, I got to give him credit for not. The egg slap was one thing, but one of the things that I really thought, wow, you're pulling and playing with people around you. He messed with Eddie.
And I will say though,
and then, obviously,
it was still an interesting moment to see Marco Ruiz recover from that. Because guys, Remco is a huge heavyweight big dude, and Marco Ruiz is not a big dude. He body slammed a guy that was over 30 pounds heavier than he was, and he recovered a fight against a guy that was more taller and bigger than him. And Marco, guys, Paul Behrens and Mark Hall was a squash match. This match was so out of character for me to understand how Marco Ruiz went off with Larry Curtin and won like it was nothing, and he took his time, and I'm sure that he was tired, but oh man,
but it got under the skin of
I don't know what to say about this.
And I thought, mate, what a fucking...
It's just crazy to look back at this fight right now and for me to understand.
Conor Ben has a great relationship with
what a
his father,
fight.
and Chris Eubank and his dad.
It was a fight, all right, but man, was it an entertaining fight? Well, we'll just have to know about that later. But guys, here I thought that Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock was the worst fight of all time.
I remember being in Sheffield and Chris Eubanks Jr. was...
Well, ladies and gentlemen, all of that tournament winning in UFC 6 was for nothing. The Russian Bear and The Rock, Ken Shamrock and Oleg Toktarov. This match was similar. How
it's that
similar was it?
seamless,
I'll tell it to you in just a
tank
moment.
top he wears everywhere. And he did this for ages, and you're looking at him like, bro, what's going on?
Honestly-
This is a weird fashion statement for a man who's, what, 50 years old?
But even I was like early 20s, and I just remember seeing him in the gym and thinking, what the hell's
I
going on
don't think
here?
there were any
And bear in
promo
mind, when everyone
videos.
comes into the boxing gym, you know, you've got the
Considering
elite
I was
boxing
watching
team,
this
there's
off a
you know,
YouTube
Carl Froch,
video,
different professionals that
so
come
I
to
don't
the
know if there
door,
were any
and he just
promos
slowly
to
walks
any of
in.
the
It's like a
information
smooth
here
criminal like Michael
of the
Jackson,
fighter's
just
discipline. So
slowly comes in,
I don't know.
and
I
he
think they
just-
got rid
he
of
didn't even
that.
need to open his mouth. He just commands the room so easily. And I often think when he was in the corner of Chris
was too much,
Jr.,
wasn't it?
it was too
Oh.
much. He took all the attention away, and it's his dad. You look up to your dad, and I think it almost took away
So-
from his own personality. And now maybe he's, and don't get me wrong, I'd love to see his dad being involved in this
Guys.
situation. But, you know, hopefully, you know, as the fight nears
Both
comes
guys are in the
closer,
ring.
hopefully he's
Several
gonna be
weeks
there.
ago,
We
ladies
don't
and
know,
gentlemen,
but I
Alex
think-
Taktarov
He- he-
recovered
he-
from
he-
a
he-
most
I'm just saying
humongous fight.
That shit.
Barely
think
defeating
it's
Tank
such a
Abbott
difficult
after
situation
falling
not to
and
get too
hitting the
deep into
ground
it,
so
but,
hard
you
that
know,
he just couldn't
it's
breathe
Chris
anymore
Senior's
after having a
lost to Son, and I
hard-fought
think
tournament.
The whole rehydration clause I
Comes
think
into
really
the fight.
scared about that situation, and you know.
And of course, Michael Buffer tells us, Buffalo, New York, are you ready? And he says, let's get ready to rumble. And as he says that, there are 3 ring card girls clapping and applauding. And like, the ring card girls are in it. They're great. There's one sign in the crowd that says Russian Bear and another one known as The Rock Rules,
You know, fulfills the legacy.
which I thought they were talking about Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
He's had some good fights, but he's lost.
And
some
we
big
present our
fights.
4th
And
degree
this is
black
a
belt
chance
of
for him to have a
Jiu-Jitsu
win
and martial
over
arts,
you,
4-time
or
European,
have a
Asia
special
Jiu-Jitsu
moment in
champion,
the ring with you,
national
and
Russian
you're
judo
just such a
champion,
fucking
Oleg
stubborn,
Taktarov,
overbearing,
reigning
opinionated
Ultimate Fighting
bastard who
6
can't let this lad is a
champion,
35-year-old man,
Oleg
let him
Taktarov
fight,
at
he can do
6
the fuck he
feet,
wants.
The simple fact is, like, you see the
250
fights happening,
pounds.
and, you know, why
Our
is
next
he-
fighter,
On his videos, I don't know if you're aware.
considering he was wearing
I haven't seen too
blue
much of his
trunks,
stuff. I have seen that he's
our
got
other
a
buddy's
beard.
wearing black,
The simple fact is, you
which is
can't turn the
perfect for
clock
him
back.
because it
He's
makes him
fighting
look like an
now.
imitate
Get on board.
intimidator
Life's too short, and,
at 6 feet tall,
and, you know, if
a record
the
of
fact
3
is
wins,
that
2
Nigel
losses,
put
and
his
probably
hand
1
round
draw.
Chris's neck. If that-
He is the super fighting champion, shoe fighter, the master of the octagon, the one and only Ken Shamrock. And they showed the females in the background clapping and applauding, and a couple of the other ring card girls are already holding up their signs. Guys, the crowd were actually screaming like bananas in this entire show, or during the start of the opening. And we also have another ring card girl, again, her black panties like that. But yeah. So Taktarov are both 215 pounds, 6 feet tall, 27-year-old Sambo Taktarov, and a 31-year-old shoe fighter, Russian and California, USA.
Everybody's in his head.
Like, there's nothing you can say about that. This was actually not much to talk about. So both guys are both, they both lead off with their left foot, so you can already tell what their stances are. Both of them are in studying each other. They're both holding off everything. And the Bear is making sure everything is doing okay. And Ken Shamrock, he's trying his best to hold everything down as best he can. Both guys study each other in the first minute. And consider they're both the champions, they're trying to make sure they don't get hard early to themselves, so they want to take it easy. But of course, they both wrestle each other, and then Ken Shamrock finally takes him down and puts him on top. And of course, Oleg does wrap around the shoe fighter's body with his legs, but then lets go, and then he throws punches to the back of the head, and yeah. And then after this, we're about 2 minutes into the fight right now, and we actually did got a little bit of a headbutt, but then I think we got maybe, like, we did got some headbutting, like, because Ken Shamrock was putting some headbutts into Taktarov.
I thought the same thing.
If that's not saying the least.
I don't know
but
which one you'd class as better.
as we
after
come to the
watched them
3-minute
and,
mark,
really think about it, but I remember looking at
we
you
can
and
already
thinking,
tell that this is the
you're
moment.
someone aggressive,
Like the
'cause
Marco
you've
Ruiz
done
and
a bit,
Remco
yeah.
Pardo
And
went
guess
12
what?
minutes and
Conor Benn
27
is fucking
seconds.
aggressive. So
This match, and
we're
guys,
gonna
I
find
did read
out,
this on the Wrestling
I think,
Observer.
more about Chris Eubank
33
Jr.
minutes,
than we
which
are about
was
Conor Benn,
pointed
because
out.
Conor Benn's got the excuse of, I'm moving up
This
2 weight
match
divisions.
went
Yeah.
You've seen that
30
video we just put out.
3 minutes. And after 3 minutes of the first match, I don't think no one was expecting 30 more minutes of this crap.
Excuses and then just the whole,
Because the
most of
hype
time
was
he's
real.
mentioned it, but
The
he
fans
is moving
enjoyed
up
it.
2 weight divisions. The reason he fought
But
those last fights was to prepare for this one.
the entirety of the fight was
He's
Ken
gonna win a world
Shamrock
title.
on top
Is
of
that 147?
Oleg,
And
just like
I do
Royce
think that
Gracie
there's
in the
opportunities for both, but I just
show.
think that Chris Eubank
Which I
Jr.,
thought Royce Gracie
when
was
he's
doing a
doing
better
the
job
show,
because he was
the
in a
reason
wrapping
Royce
him
Gracie
up, even though
did
he was the
that,
bottom the
they
entire
had
time, but
a
still.
lot of pressure on themselves.
But this
And
time,
really
it looked
what he's
like
doing
Shamrock was
was
doing a
for
better
him.
job
If he
than him
moves,
with Gracie
his
in
career's
UFC 5,
fucking
but
done. Whereas
I
Conor
just
Benn,
didn't
you can
really
go, fair
understand
enough, I moved
what
up,
their
didn't I? I
ideas
moved back
were
down 147, never
of
finished.
fighting in
I
this
can still
style
rebuild,
if
I
it
can still have
didn't
a
do
career. I
good
can
the
still do
first
things
time
Chris
with
Eubank
him
has
and
to do to
Gracie
win a world
too.
title.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think there's pressure
Because
on both sides, and that's
all
why
you
we're
saw
gonna
in the
get
first
fucking
5 and
scrapped.
so minutes were
one thing's
Ken
for sure,
Shamrock
Chris
being
is
on top
definitely
of his
one step
opponent.
ahead of him all the time, because
That's
just
about
you
it.
mentioned that again. I just feel as if Chris Eubanks is sitting watching every move that Conor makes, waiting for him to trip him up and have
That's
an
it.
opportunity. I just think he's too intelligent, and you can look at it 2 ways.
Like-
Chris is just kind of, he should be concentrating on himself, and maybe that's what Conor's doing. He's really focused on the
can't
fight.
say much about that.
But at the same time, when you've got someone as emotional as Conor, you need to get into his head. You need to get every advantage before that bell goes as you can. And I just think both guys have got a lot of questions to be asked, because, like you say, Conor's
5
moving up
or
in weight.
6 minutes of the
Didn't look
fight.
great in his last fight.
Shamrock did try to
Chris,
make
you
some
know, he's
interesting
I think the
moments of
biggest
trying to
thing
get
for
up
Chris
and then goes
is the
back down, and
rehydration
then
post, because
he
if
pushes
he
the
does
Russian
it,
bear to the
that's
fence.
one thing I did think
And then
about
we did
Saudi.
got a little bit of
He
a
looked so
bruised
tight in the
on
weight.
And there was no rehydration.
on Oleg
There was
Toktarov's
no rehydration, and now
face.
there is.
Part of
I
his
think-
face
I
right
think
here
with
is bruised
Chris,
a little
yes,
bit.
he fought at a lighter weight years ago, but he's naturally getting bigger. He's 35.
But as we get to the
I think
7-minute
that
mark,
made a difference
his
now. And it's part of me realising
Shamrock's
why
head
Chris
is already
Eubanks
getting
senior
into the
was
face
worried
of
about the weight,
Toktarov,
because
and then
everybody knows
Toktarov
him
is grabbing
better than
on,
you
trying to
are, so
hold
he's
on,
got the same DNA.
trying to
He knows
stay
how
to the
probably
fence line as
make
best he
weight,
can.
seen how he struggled in the
Like he's
past.
grabbing the fence as best he
But
can
yeah, I
to
just think it's so
make
exciting.
sure
This
that
fight,
he
like I say,
tries
I'm
to
just
put some
so
leverage
wrapped
on
into it.
getting
Like I
out
say, I
of
wasn't a massive fan of Chris
of
beforehand, but now
Ken
he's made me
Shamrock's
believe
hold.
that
But then
now
Ken
I'm
Shamrock makes a turnaround and a uke turn
They've
and
never
gets him
had
out of the fence
a
area.
huge
So.
fighter. Like that's been like,
But
they've been the
considering
headliner.
that moment was a little bit interesting
The
because I was
biggest
waiting
fight
for
you
something
had,
interesting
you
to
had
happen, but
Groves,
nothing else happened. We
Billy
get to
Joe
the
Saunders,
8-minute mark, and
Smith,
again,
Liam Smith,
probably the
guys, I don't
biggest
like to
Smith
talk
fight of
about
them
this
all.
fight from start to
he had
finish,
a
but
but he's never been like
there was nothing
AJ
interesting about
Superstar.
this fight.
These
Again,
together,
guys,
the tickets,
guys,
they could've
UFC
sold
back
them
then
like
was
twice
really
over.
hard enough for me
Like,
to believe that
there's
this was
something there.
To be
a
honest, it's
deserving
shocking when
thing.
Eddie Hearn said it's sold
Guys,
out
I
better
wish
than-
they showed us out a
I remember
5-minute
interview
clock
where
like they
people
did in
said it's
UFC
sold out
1
better than
because
any fight that Britain's had, like, in the
I
last
think-
100 years.
guys, they should have allowed
That surprised
judging
me
scorecards. I don't know
more.
why they
When
didn't do
this fight was
judging
first made,
scorecards.
the
I don't know
market
why they
said,
thought
not
going back to the
interested,
day
just
when
little
bare
lads,
knuckle
right?
boxing was all about,
Clearly,
oh,
people
one
are
opponent
invested.
stands
It's
and
not
the other
everyone
lays
is
down
doing it,
being
so, yeah, I think
defeated.
it's just,
That no, we're in the
it's gonna be amazing.
1990s
Absolutely
and they
can't
decide
wait.
to not bring in
But I think we'll
judging
wrap it up there.
scorecard. I
think,
just don't
there's
get
a lot
it.
to look forward
I
to.
just
Boxing
don't get
right
it.
now is in a great place,
So,
yeah,
at the
make
10-minute
sure to like and
mark,
subscribe and thanks for
they're
joining us,
already
Ryan,
barely
see you in the
centered
next
to the
one.
ring right now, in the middle of the ring at the 10-minute mark. And again, it's still the same thing. Like, this time, Toktarov is trying to get some grab onto his head, and again, Shamrock is still throwing out headbutts. It's bad. I hate it. I hate every bit of this bullcrap that I'm seeing here because... And you know why it upsets me? Guys, every time my nose itches right now, every time I rub my nose, that's the sign of me being upset. Or maybe I have to shave my mustache because that's the reason why I do it. But don't worry, I already shaved my mustache a couple days ago. So I'm really upset about talking about this fight because the more I talk about it and how upset I am, the more my nose itches.
In which the smaller
That's
man
how
comes
bad
out
this
top.
fight is to me. I hate it. It was so bad. Jesus, it was so bad that Ken Shamrock was trying to cheat by headbutts over and over again.
So as we
And
prepare
they grab,
to
they
re-roll
call
the
this or
undisputed
that, and
dice,
Toktarov
we'll
wraps
witness
his
a man
legs around him and then
once declared a
lets go of his
pumped-up
legs, and
middleweight
he
who's
tries
not
to
only
grab him on and
conquered
try
his
to hold,
own
and then
Goliath,
That's all you see in the.
All of the ones that mattered.
Because the power is not in the fact
Hey
that
guys,
somebody is big
you
or
can
small,
call Ken Shamrock
it's
a
in the
great
spirit.
legend, but if this is what
And while
his
the
career
journey is
was
far
during the
from over,
time,
it offers the
why would you
perfect
ever
time
want to
to
watch
reflect on
UFC
some of
again
the
if this
special
is the
talents
guy
have
that you
defied
believe
odds, critics,
deserved to be in a
and
fight
the
like
laws of
this?
physics
It was
to
bad.
overcome far bigger
Like,
and more imposing
That's
men.
what you see in the entirety of this fight, and it's just like, I'm like, guys, even Tank Abbott was giving
subscribe
Alex
if you're new.
Taktarov
Just
a
the
hard
thumbs up
time
button
when
if
they
you
were
wanna
in
help us
UFC
out
6 and
get
how
ready to
tired it
punch
was.
way
But you
above
know
your
what that
weight.
moment was
Because
crazy?
in the squared circle,
It was
size
so
doesn't
crazy
always
that they
matter.
barely managed to survive that fight. Because the moment when both of them were tired, John McCarthy told them to get up and go back to their neutral corner to restart again. And then a minute or so later, a couple minutes later, they finally get back to the ground, but then Taktarov gets his move just like that,
One
and Tank
of the
Abbott taps
biggest
out
size
with
disparities,
Oleg
even by
laying to the
heavyweight
ground,
standards,
barely
came in
breathing
an
and not
obscure Aussie
suffocating from
dust-up in
everything that he's gone
2021
through in this
as
match.
the
And
7'1"
Tank Abbott leaves the
juggernaut
ring
Julius Long
respectfully.
took on unbeaten 6-foot
This
slugger
match was
Kimia
so
Hill.
bad. I was like, why is Big John McCarthy not giving them a break? Like, I'm like, if John McCarthy's idea was going to the 15-minute mark to tell them to break, and then go back to their corner
Long
to
was best
restart
known
again,
as David
that would have
Tua's
been
sparring
okay,
partner,
because it's
but he
like,
also gained
who wants to
notoriety for his
see a
mid-fight
guy that
taunts
was
and
on top
showboating.
of a guy for 15 straight minutes? By the way, speaking about the timer there, around the 14-minute mark,
Sadly,
the camera
Julius was
cuts
born
to a
into
shot
an
to the
exceptional
rafters,
era of
which
heavyweights
shows
and
the
some huge
left
hitters.
side eye of blood dripping
And his
down
chin,
on Oleg
even all the way
Taktarov's
up there in
eye.
the clouds, couldn't take the
Oh
legs.
boy, and that's the moment when blood gets real. Yeah,
So
and
whilst
like I
the
said
big
before,
man
they're
would
both
play his
rubbing their
usual
heads
role in
to
this
each
fight
other at
too,
that moment,
where
and
Hill was getting
then this is the moment
particularly
where the
good at
15-minute
landing
mark, where it
shots
seems
on
like
bigger
things
men.
were about to get
Long
interesting,
was
because
getting good at
Oleg
deceiving
seemed
them.
like he was about to get off. But then, as I'm typing this information down, thinking that is Big John McCarthy going to do anything, guess what? At 14 minutes and 40 seconds, Big John McCarthy from the heavens finally read my mind, and he finally told Ken Shamrock to get off of him, and then tell both fighters go to a neutral corner at the 15-minute mark, which read my mind. And I said, thank you, John McCarthy. Thank you so much for giving them a second win, because man, oh man, they sure need it. Definitely. It's kind of weird because, to be honest, guys, did they actually? I don't know, guys, because I don't know if they did. I don't know if they actually put a towel, because Oleg Taktarov was talking to his trainer, but in the fence. But I don't know if they put a towel on him. I don't think they did. I don't know if they actually. I wish they would have cleaned his eye first or something like that because
He
of
was
it. But
successful in his first few fights.
what do I know?
And stopped a 6'6"
so we get to the
Martin
15-minute mark.
McCoy.
The fight finally resumes again, and then both guys grab and hold each
However,
other, and they
an
stand
even
off.
bigger
And
brute was on the horizon.
well,
It's a big advantage to have in boxing.
again, what happens next is again, because Oleg finally tries to go for the legs, and then well, Shamrock goes for it and grabs, and then
Despite it
as
being
they
a
both grab
short
each other,
notice card,
Taktarov
Hunter's
finally
speed,
goes
skills,
down to
and
the ground by
angles were a
himself, and
nightmare
we're
for
back on
Ustinov.
top again for Shamrock.
His best work and the
At this
deciding
moment,
just
excuse
like
me, by the
Usyk
way,
against Fury, came
At this
in round
moment, I'm
9.
like, there's just no point of why
Where
UFC
the
should
Gypsy King
continue with a
recovered,
guy that
this
does
giant
not
could
like.
not.
Guys, this is not what I always think of what UFC should have been like, but man,
Coming in at very late notice. He's done it again.
like try to wait a couple more years for something big to happen, and this is what you get. That's not my specialty. None of this is my specialty whatsoever.
As a 5'6" heavyweight that captured world titles and whooped far bigger men than himself, Dwight Muhammad Qawi might be the perfect poster boy
Not
for
once.
this kind of feature.
George Foreman felt those punches.
A man who battled a 6'4" George Foreman and gave a 6'2" Evander Holyfield his
Not
toughest
once.
night's work.
was I expecting that a disqualification was going to take place.
Than Gervonta Davis
Because, guys,
and
I
Manny
wish they
Pacquiao.
would have allowed disqualifications for multiple headbutts. I wish they would have added more rules. Because, guys, they did sell it that there were going to be fouls or maybe groin punches or something like that. But back to the head and then headbutts, those should have been disqualifications.
However,
They should have been.
one of Coe's most
Because at this
impressive
moment,
wins
like I
came
said
against
before,
Leon
Takarov's
Spence.
eyes are bleeding on, and at this moment, Shamrock has been on top of him again for multiple times. He's trying to hurt his body so much by headbutts that that's all they get. But then around the 18-minute mark, he finally tries to get to Shamrock, put his head up, and then Shamrock gets a couple interesting punches off of him, and then they go back to the ground again.
The bigger man miss, made him pay, and then eventually forced
Like
him
he tries to
to
shove him
concede.
back, and then
With
as
Mills
holding
Lane
him on, and
having
then,
seen enough.
but then bam, they go back again, and that's that. So yeah, I just really don't know how to point this out for what I was watching here, because the entirety of the fight was there. It just they weren't really caring. And then around the 20-minute mark, as they're still down to the ground, as Ken being the top, we get a screen that shows, I think it was actually Oleg Taktarov's trainer in the box screen or something. They show us his reaction to the fight. But then we get to the 20-minute mark, and then, well, Big John McCarthy stops the fight and then tells both guys to get back to the ring. And as they walk out, someone spills water all over Ken Shamrock. Because, and it's also interesting because they also pointed out, guys, there is one thing that the commentators pointed out,
the heavyweight championship of the world.
because it said that their feet of Shamrock has been swelling a little, and a bit of his left side of his face close to his eye in a second. And with 20 minutes to work from the looks of everything, they're already thinking that they're showing signs of fatigue right now, but at this moment, they're not even performing in the tournament. That's what this is. So they get a third opportunity, and then this time they both grab each other's arms, and they grab, they hold, and again, at this moment, I'm like, don't go back to the ground again. And then for some reason, before, like, around 20-30, Shamrock throws a headbutt, and then Taktarov, they both throw each other to let each other go. At this moment, it was bad. And by the way, guys, speaking about bad, Ken Shamrock is wearing shoes. Taktarov is barefooted. And as looking at when the commentators pointed out that his swelling foot, I did saw a little bit of a red mark on the back of his shin, of his heel of his shin, of part of his foot is red. Oleg Taktarov's left foot was red for some reason, which made you wonder that he was in more pain than anyone else in that fight. And Shamrock was the one cheating so much that there was no illegalness of disqualification. This time both guys throw jabs, but then bam, they grab on for a headlock on each other, and then Taktarov does a perfect somersault cartwheel land, and which got the crowd hyped up there, but nothing there. Shamrock decides to go back being the top again.
Both men were bang on
and
the one
this time he's grabbing onto his arms, rocking like a baby, but then he lets go for a moment later, and now they're back to where they are again. The power, everything, like,
I believe it will be a nightmare.
What's the strategy of winning a fight when it comes to this boredom? And one of the ring card girls is like this, with putting her chair on the other side of the chair, talking to a guy with a white shirt. And at this moment, she's already done for the entire night in the background of the ring card girl, and she's just talking to someone, whispering to him like this. And some of the ring card girls are just waiting for something interesting to happen. And at this moment, yeah, like, that's what's happened. There's a ring card girl just weighing her by like this and just talking to someone like this while in the middle of all this boredom. I don't blame them for this being bored. Like, at this moment, why would you ever even say that Ken Shamrock would even deserve to be back in UFC after everything from this? I just don't know. Like, Taktarov, I don't blame him for getting hurt that badly with all the headbutts. I guess his idea was different, but I just don't know what the idea was here, other than they were just not doing much. Like, where's the punches? Where's the kicks or the jabs? Like, don't get me wrong. Don. Doing kicks with wearing shoes like Ken Shamrock is not good.
6.5 inches of height
It's
and
not.
4 inches of reach against Mario Barrios.
None of it is.
Than we've seen Tank against. The guy who's going to come in much taller, longer reach, but that same level of aggression.
I've never seen Tank face someone like that. I think, he's in for a surprise more than anything. Once that bell rings.
Yeah. I mean, he'll find out come fight night. How much the size difference can make, especially with 2 weight classes.
With Gervonta Tank Davis daring to be
So
great.
at this moment, the commentators pointed at. So guys, as we're about almost 25 minutes into the
Tank's
fight,
power and skill overcame the tail
one
of
of the
tape.
commentators, which has to be Bruce Beck again, points out that the referee could
And despite
actually
a
bring them
relatively
back to their
close
feet.
first half, the
And at this
later
moment,
round
the
momentum
crowd
swung
of
as
boos
it
are
always
looking
does
for
in the Baltimore
action
Bangers'
for
favor.
almost 25 minutes, and there's a 30-minute time limit with 5-minute overtime. Guess what? Make that 3 minutes. The fight will end in a draw. They actually believe at this point that all Tarov is trying to do is like that. There's no criticism in the survivalist fight, which
folded the larger man in the
is a
11th.
smart tactic. But the point is, as far as Shamrock is concerned, Don,
And to be able to even just
everything else with everything else going on, because at this moment, Bruce Beck and everyone else, Don, are trying to get something done here, and I finally do listen to some of their commentary here, but at this moment, I was already checking out.
Size-wise, Tank
From this
Barrios was
fight.
very similar to another
Because that's
man
all you
that
got from
featured
this.
boxing's most
This
famous
fight was a little
giant
bit
slayer.
entertaining because at least the referee was telling them to get back up and this or that, and trying to give them a little bit of a few breaks here and there. There were some moments where we did have some headbutts, but yet again, guys, the headbutts. Guys, count a record of how many
It's one that
headbutts
we've
there
seen
has been in a
1,000
fight.
times,
You'll count a
but
lot
never
of them.
gets old.
I just don't know what to say.
I survived that fight.
But then, as we have more blood to the eye again,
pounds and Margarito 165 pounds.
because at 27 minutes and 27 or 28 seconds
Manny
of the
Pacquiao
fight,
was
where the
carrying
timer
the sport
stops,
when he stepped up to face
John McCarthy
disgraced
gets off of them. He
Antonio
picks up
Margarito
Tuck Tara to
following
get back
the
to his
loaded
feet
glove
gently.
scandal.
They walk back to the ring, and I don't know if they even gave him a towel, because the least they could do is rub off the blood away from his eye, I guess. I guess they did, because he does walk back
A good big man beats a good little
to the
man,
ring,
sure.
but
this was
I
no
think his trainer
ordinary
did
little
walk
man.
up a little bit and gave him, but I don't know if he gave him the towel to rub his face a little bit. I just don't know. So with 27 minutes and 30 seconds into the fight, like the fight's coming close into the fight, and should I even call it a fight? Why would I? Because at this moment, the ability of understanding what you're doing in a fight is ridiculous. But then at the 28-minute mark, they both grab each other, hold on, and grab again, as they always
The
do.
Mexican
This
looked
time they're
huge
both
that
standing
night,
up still
but the
barely.
super welterweight division
And then
has
we get a left
continued to
kick from
evolve.
Taktarov, and I will say though, guys, the last minutes of the fight were interesting, where Taktarov stopped, puts his hands down, this or that, stop. He's trying to fake
And
trick
now,
this or that,
a man who
and I think we did saw a
Margarito
little bit of
the same way he
like some
towered
red
over
streak
Pacquiao in
thing, like
2010
coming down on
is
Ken
6'6"
Shamrock's body, like some
Sebastian
red streak.
Fundora.
I don't know if that was blood coming down on him or something like that. I don't know what that was, but
Despite
he's
a
bleeding or
weak
something like
defense
that, or
in
maybe it was a red
spots,
mark,
he
or
smothered
maybe
and
that was
bullied
just
his
a.
opponents
I don't
to
know what it was.
accumulate a 21
But then we go to the
fight
29-minute
unbeaten
mark.
record,
Both
but
guys
he
are
was yet
handling
to
each
face
other,
any
and then
real
the
knockout
commentators
power
pointed out that
until
we are
now.
going to an overtime. It will be only a 3 minutes. We are told 3 minutes. So now they know. And then as they say that around 29:15, we get a right kick from Ken Shamrock, kicking him to the leg. And John McCarthy, as he's pulling up his shin pad or something like that for Shamrock, John McCarthy tells him that don't do that. Don't do that. Don't kick him while you're wearing shoes. Like, because kicking was legal, but with shoes on, they're saying that you can't do that, which makes you wonder. It's weird because I think guys, I think it was just me because I think Don.
What was the hardest pro fight?
I think Don Wilson said that I didn't know that was a rule. Taktarov can kick him while he's barefooted, but he did. Guys, I think Don Wilson said that I didn't know that you can't kick a person while wearing shoes, but Taktarov can kick him while he's barefooted. So that makes you also wonder why people on TV are watching a fight, a guy with shoes on and a guy that's barefooted, and you're not allowed to kick a person wearing shoes. So why won't UFC just change the rules and say, okay, wearing shoes, boxing, everything, being barefooted is legal. Wearing stuff on your feet is illegal. You can't kick, you can't do that. So why is UFC still allowing people to wear shoes for the next few more years? I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand, and I still don't know why they. I don't know why the producer or anyone else that was the CEO at the time did not change to enforce the rules, saying that you can't wear shoes. I don't understand. That was the most interesting moment of the fight. Like, watching the last several minutes of the fight was pretty interesting. Hearing them talking about that, which is crazy. But of course, both guys standing up, they're just both going clockwise to each other in the final minutes of the fight. Because of that, and the 30-minute goes up, and that's about it. And both guys rub water, get our eye clean, and that's it.
Fighters in the world, pound for pound, and everyone knows they're not fighting each other.
So what happened in the final 3 minutes? Well, guys, I will say though, the final 3 minutes were pretty interesting. But watching a fight that went that long is crazy. Like 27 minutes of the fight were not there.
I'm gonna get them belts. I'm gonna go down the Hall of Fame.
Paul Williams was always classed as a huge.
The last 3 minutes of the fight were pretty decent.
Moving up in the second half
Both guys are wrestling, they're punching, and then they almost go for a grab, but then Taktarov gets out of the way. They both grab each other to the arm, as they did multiple times, looking for a down, and I'm like, I hope Taktarov brings him down, I hope he becomes the top, but then he shoves Shamrock's face away with his hand. They both go back up, and we get a little bit of an uppercut from Shamrock at one moment. It was just so out of the craziness. Both guys were throwing everything they got at each other. They don't give a damn about putting holds or going on the ground. The last 3 minutes were just so, like, I wouldn't say it was boring, but both guys were grabbing, and then we get a little bit of a block, this or that, and we get a little bit of a grab, and Shamrock is getting backed up multiple seconds away from Taktarov, and both guys are just trying to grab onto each other, but at this moment, they're just they're just not doing nothing at the end. The final minute of the fight comes out, we get some swings. They're just trying to end for a TKO, but the final minute of the fight ends with this. We get an uppercut, and then Taktarov grabs him, and then they're both down on the ground again. The last 30 seconds of the fight was just that. Shamrock tries to get back up, he throws headbutt again on him, shoves him on, and that's about it. We get some punches to the back, and that's about it. And then he tries to grab for an arm, because the last 10 seconds was even crazy, where Shamrock tries to grab for him. It looks like he was trying to go for a shoe fighting on him, then grabs him and then goes around, goes for a 69 on him. He grabs him on, tries to grab his legs, and he's trying to get out of it, but Shamrock failed to get a grab on him there, gets him up and tries to get up. That was the only time that Shamrock tried to get up from being the top, and he did it during the final seconds of the fight. I don't understand. But he failed to do it, and well,
regaining his former status.
That's about it.
Southpaw brought a much
so
more
with everything going
style
on,
than
like,
that of traditional Cuban boxers.
Guys, I think the Russian Bear should have won this fight due to all the illegalness. His body hurt more than anyone else, and I just wish that's not how it would have ended. But Ken Shamrock is still remaining as reigning champion, and ending it with a draw is I just don't like it. I don't like it looking at it like that, but it's just so bad.
And despite both men having their moments throughout, in the fourth, his projection rang true. Eventually, too brave for his own good, Corrales was pulled out on doctor's orders.
Give me 1 round. It's too bad. Give me 1 round. It's two really bad cuts.
So here's the thing.
It's over, and you can see the reaction. You heard Corrales
So at this moment, guys, both guys.
We've had a dreadful month. British boxing.
But Michael Buffer declares the fight a draw, and that's it. It stinks to see it end like that, guys, but guys, I just don't think Ken Shamrock deserved to be in the UFC after this. And it's even weird because, guys, later in other fights after UFC 7, he would go on to masculate multiple of these fights.
Been knocked out by Rackman weeks later.
Because, guys, after his entire running and fighting and everything else, he was from Pancrase champion when he lost against Minoru Suzuki at 214 due to a knee bar submission in May that year. Defeat Dan Severn, and then
super middleweight Mario
at this moment, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that he would come out in UFC 8 to fight against someone else, which we had already never expected to be in the division to fight again. And then in UFC 9 we had, and I'm not going to tell you much about UFC 8 because we don't know when that moment will come when he fought against Kimo Leopoldo. But when UFC 9 came along, and when I saw UFC 9 final of Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock fighting each other, I was like, what the heck was that 30-minute fight all about? Because that 30-minute fight was so lazy and lousy. Because at least the fight with this fight was more entertaining than Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock 2, and entertaining than Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock in UFC 9. It just goes to show you what this does, but man, I just don't know what to say about all this because Ken Shamrock's career is just so out. I just don't know what to say about this anymore.
All of Mike's opponents were
So, ladies and gentlemen, we get the final match here. Marco Ruiz, I'm sure he's already been recovering for a long time after a full half an hour. The production is already done, gone from the roof at this moment. Paul Behrens has went 2 minutes and 11 seconds total in 2 fights. And everything else is not going to be bad for him. Marco Ruiz has went 15 minutes and 50 seconds total in 2 fights. So at this moment, anyone can win this fight,
just to land punches
depending on who you ask. Both ring card girls, one with big, large underwear shaped like that, and another one, well, can't say much about it.
Just 1 minute
but
and
hey, Blonde is there.
17 seconds, and it cleared.
So yeah, the ring card girls can't end it with a bang there, but hey, what else can you say about it? Nothing. So our 6'8" buddy is here. Paul Behrens is just trying to get his stuff together. A man from Alaska is trying to become a UFC winner, 3-1 record. He's trying to prove himself. And I will say, though, he did a good job, but considering the competition he was fighting was crazy, Marco Ruiz was trying to earn his competition by surprisingly barely winning fights. Like, he was taking it easy in some fights, considering that he wasn't much of the aggressor. So if Marco Ruiz wins this fight, he'll be the first Brazilian, well, probably the second Brazilian in history, but also Paul Behrens can also try to get stuff done as well, because at this moment, whoever wins will get a trip to the Ultimate on December the 16th in Denver, Colorado. And I'm sure we can already tell about that, which is what the commentator said. So the fight starts out, both guys are both left-footed, so we know about the stance. And Paul Behrens is charging straight after Marco, grabbing, he gets him stuck to the fence, and then we get a little bit of a right punch, right kick. Like, Marco is throwing out right kicks like never before, and at this moment, he has to watch out for those kicks. We get another kick where it gets blocked by Paul, and then both grab each other. And
opening round alone,
and at this moment, I'm like, this is not going to end well. But man, it's crazy that both fighters managed to make it to the final without injuries or something like that, which is crazy that the alternate bouts meant nothing in the entire show.
That right there, my favorite fight of all time, because it changed the world, not just of boxing, but of combat sports forever.
I know your vision because we share it.
To being allies and friends.
They're keeping themselves balanced to the fence.
Yeah, I
Paul
wish I could
Behrens, his
explain
mouth
to
is
you
somewhat bleeding. We have a little
this
bit of blood
opening,
around the
but
shoulder
I'm
here
gonna try, but it's very
of
difficult
Marco.
because there's a lot going on here.
And
All right,
even
well,
just
let
like
me
Paul
run
Behrens
down
doing it,
what happened here. So yeah, there's no voiceover.
similar
in this
than
corner.
Remco
There's just
Pardal,
music.
Paul is
Not
just
even, like,
putting him straight
big
to the
music, it's
fence
just
barrier.
music. It just exists.
He throws some punches.
Yeah, so here's a couple
And
of
then
things
he's
that
trying to
happened
bring
here
him
last
down
couple
as
of
best
weeks
he
on
could.
WCW television. We had Sting handcuffing Vampiro.
But at this
to the cage and then
moment,
leaving him and not
both
attacking
guys
him.
are just
We had Rick
on
Steiner and
the
Tank
run
Abbott
here
attack
because
Scott Steiner
they
outside
let
with a
go,
2x4.
and now we're
We
getting
had a
some
Goldberg
kicks.
monster truck run over
Like,
a
this
bunch
fight
of cars.
was 10 times more entertaining. That this is almost like watching Goldberg versus Diamond Dallas Page and Halloween Havoc 98 after they were overtime for 3 hours because the Hogan and the Warrior match and other stuff was all happening. But that's what this match reminded me of. This match was so good. It was better than anything else on the show. And it's too bad because the pay-per-view was over time during this time, which stinks. At least we have it on VHS tape to watch.
Like I hear
And
him, I
YouTube,
understand.
barely.
Imagine if Don Marie came
So we
through.
come to the 2-minute mark.
Yeah,
Paul
I'm
Behrens is trying
attacking
to
the
charge
whole
after
family
him.
at that point. All right.
He's the aggressor. He's throwing kicks, pushing this or that, and then we go to the 2 minutes and 20-second mark, where finally you get a little bit of a front chin locker, this or that grab. He picks up Marco Ruiz like nothing, puts him down, and then just shoves him back again. We get a 3-6 180 onto them, and then they push each other back. Like, dude, you see him pull him up is crazy. By the way, Paul Behrens is 300 pounds, and this guy is 210. He took on a guy that was 240, picked him up, slammed him like Andre the Giant, and then he got against Remco Pardal and won it. And this guy went through 15 minutes, and this guy, 15 minutes of tiredness against a guy that went 2 minutes and 2 fights. And he is barely handling himself. He now puts him to the fence instead, pushing Paul Behrens to the fence. And man, I gotta say, seeing how Marco Ruiz was holding himself together is crazy. But then they finally get a little bit of a headlock on Marco as Paul finally gets a headlock on him.
So then
getting a
Eric
little bit of
Bischoff is talking to
sneakiness
Shane
out of
Douglas
at this moment.
Because assumably
this
Shane
match,
Douglas
I'll
hates
say, is
Ric
crazy.
Flair.
And then Marco pulls over and then goes right behind him. He actually turns around and now he's on the back side
There's no voiceover. It's just music.
of Marco.
But as you can
He
see,
tried to
there's
get
a
up
lot
on him
going
like
on in the world of
piggyback
WCW right
bank
now.
riding
So now we
him
get
for
the
some weird reason.
WCW 2000
And then we
Thunder
get some
intro,
back
which is
elbows
just
from
as insane
Paul,
as this cold
and
open.
at this moment he is just getting like with only 5 minutes of the fight, and with Paul Behrens in his left arm was dangling to the fence on the other side, just hanging on. Like, it's crazy. Because seeing Marco handling this 6'8" dude, grabbing him from behind, and Paul is trying to hold on to the fence, which is actually weird. He tries to stomp on part of his back, part of his right knee, which is crazy, but
is Buff Bagwell doing a little dance.
it was crazy because, like, I will say though, it wasn't boring as much as it should have been, like at the 6-minute mark, because they like looking at their footwork and seeing where they had to go was crazy. But you had to be careful on making not one mistake, and Paul Behrens was barely giving him some back elbows, which was more legal than headbutts. And surprisingly, even surprisingly, because Marco's trainer was just trying to give him some heads up here, he sticks his body out to the fence and trying to give him some advice and helping him out here, because at this moment Paul Behrens is trying to I don't know why Paul was giving him enough time to catch his breath after his last fight, because this fight lasted a little bit longer than ever, but it was almost like a wrestling show. It was so crazy. But then we try to get some back leg grabs or this or that, but then Paul finally turns and then slams his body to the fence. But no go there. Marco is not going to let go, which is crazy. With the frustration and anger and the back elbows that Paul is doing, he finally tries to pull his body back, this or that. And with everything, with the money on the line, taking on a rookie fighter that's in his rookie year, and a guy that's trying to get redemption from his defeat in the last UFC.
Because if you did,
like, you gotta understand what you're putting yourself on the line here, because these are just two guys. Like, this is like David and Goliath. But then for some reason, as we come to the 9-minute mark, at 9 minutes and 10 seconds of the fight,
they start fighting.
Big John McCarthy grabs them and pulls him away, and tells Paul Behrens to go back to his corner. Which I have to say, good job for Big John McCarthy, because at this moment, this is a 30-minute match, but we don't want to make this match longer than ever. So I'll give credit for Big John McCarthy for not making the match continue like that. So I'll give him credit. But those minutes of him holding him to the fence was the most craziest thing I've ever saw. And I was almost entertained onto my seat a little bit, just waiting for something interesting to happen. There were a couple interesting moments that were there, but man, it was crazy.
I don't even want to talk about what happened.
So they reset the match at 9 minutes and 10 seconds, and now both are studying each other. We have Marco dancing around him and just going clockwise, and then he goes counterclockwise, punches and jabs, kicks, this or that, and Paul is just trying to get stuff done. They both throw on kicks and jabs to each other. They're just both studying each other, because at this moment, one has to make a mistake. We get a left cross from Paul, misses. And then we get another punch dealt with, and then more kicks to the leg. This is almost like a legit UFC match. That's what it felt. Excuse me. And then we get to 10 minutes and 30 seconds, and both grab each other, and then we get to the fence and hold, and then we get punches, and then Paul throws him back. They go to the other side of the fence, and Marco was actually holding him to the fence there for a moment, but not for long. They got out. Paul escaped there quickly.
Thank you for saying what needed to be said.
And then now 11 minutes and 11 seconds of the fight. At this moment, we get a little bit of a replay of a little bit of a back leg, where they show part of the bruises on Paul Behrens' leg is somewhat hurt, but at this moment, he has to get to the money. At this moment, this is his last shot, or else it's over. They said that he's limping. His back, his left leg is hurting, and at this moment, he just can't stop. He wants to continue, but he's walking so slowly, barely limping his left leg, that this moment we get to 2 minutes and 15 seconds of the fight, and Paul Behrens is just throwing wild, slow punches, sloppy counters. He just can't get nothing done, and Marco is just giving him a hard time. He's dancing around him clockwise to counterclockwise, that he just can't find the mark. Like, this Goliath of a man named Paul Behrens just can't find the right moment to get him. He's just so good. And the fight comes to an end at where we get to the moment, because the fight ends here. We get to the 13-minute mark, both guys throw kicks, and the match ends. So the finish of the match is this. Both guys study each other, they both throw right kicks, similar, and then Marco throws another right kick for the 100th time on the left part of Paul Behrens' leg. Paul Behrens sells it like he really got hurt, because it was a real kick. It wasn't a work, it was a shoot kick. And he actually puts his left hand onto his hip, and then Marco finally throws another punch, kick, and then as he keeps kicking him to his left leg, Marco kicks him again, and down goes Goliath, and the crowd is going bananas, and Marco puts him on, throws punches at him, strikes and strikes at 13-17. And guys, even though this is knockout of the night, even though Unboxing UFC Encyclopedia doesn't say that, it just says fight of the night, which, yeah, I get it, but this is also knockout of the night as well. This was the most amazing finish to a match. This was one of the greatest story moments of all time. The crowd, the spectacular moment of this dude at 6'1" winning the tournament as, guys, seeing Royce Gracie win the tournament as a short dude as he was crazy, but this guy, Marco Ruiz, became the next
surprised he's even still here,
Brazilian
like, doing commentary.
to become
We got the
a
Millionaires
star
Club
in
Town Hall
UFC.
here to start
The
everything
crowd
off,
was
and
tweeting.
he
It was
fucking
all.
believed Hulk Hogan,
I
he's
don't think
got
no
the
one was
keys.
expecting Marco
He's got
Ruas
the
to win
keys
this
with
fight.
him.
It was
How
just
would I know that their
ridiculous to
keys are
see
gone?
this. He was the legit
He only
champion
comes
that
out and
night.
parades
Like
them around.
Ken Shamrock and Og
fucking
Tartarev, the match ended in a draw. There's no
they're
title
gonna do
there.
a keys on a pole match
So
or something. They
it was
got to, on a
great.
pole match?
Like
Bruce is not
celebration,
here, dude.
and everything.
Damn.
Like
Shane
you
Douglas
guys gotta
forgot about
say
that
it.
gimmick already, even though he
This
was in
was
one.
like
Shane Douglas about
an
booked himself as
amazing
Ric Flair
moment.
the world
Like
title
Marco
75 in the
Ruas
main
went
event,
into
and they
that
got
show.
beaten, sadly.
He went into competition and like the smallest dude you can find,
They beat him.
and he
They said-
won it.
He said, "Yeah, I got an idea. 75-minute main event, Ric Flair. I win. I go up."
With
I beat
everything
shit out
going
of him
on,
afterwards."
the
He said, "How
fans
would
are
you get your
enjoying it,
ass
the
beat
crowd.
by
It was
Chronic,
just
actually,
great.
idiot?"
How about you look like the biggest
With
fucking
13
loser
minutes
on
and
the whole
17
show all
seconds,
night?
the final
you,
time,
Hogan's
Marco
such a geese.
Ruas
Yeah, and
wins
Tony hates
UFC 7.
Cut the damn music.
So yeah, Hogan's
We gotta do
music
the
hits.
same angle with
Like guys,
Horace
this
and
guy
Hogan
went
with Tony and
15
Shane
minutes and 50
Douglas.
seconds in the first two
He
fights,
turns on him.
and almost
Hogan.
doubled those
Yeah.
at 13
So
minutes and
Hogan-
17
Hogan's
seconds
music
in the
hits.
fight.
Here
Like,
comes
dude,
Hogan
that's
and the
ridiculous.
boys.
This guy
Hogan
went
is
over
showing
12
off
minutes
these
in the
keys
second
as he's-
fight
he's
and
dangling
managed to
along from
win
the
it,
keychain as he comes
the
out.
tournament.
In
Like,
the crowd,
that's
there's
just
an
ridiculous.
FUND sign. I, for the life of me,
I just
cannot
don't know what to
figure out
say.
What that means.
Fuck you, New Day.
So the commentators finally put out the report here, guys. So the commentator points out the celebration. I think he's almost in tears, and I think that proves that striking can be used
Hey, cut the damn music.
for good reasons and such. And they also show the title. Someone gives a title to Marco Ruas for being the champion, I guess, because the Shamrock fight ended in a draw, which he retains it, I guess. But they just gave him a UFC 7 title and say, here's your championship belt. By the way, guys, I don't know. They did say that he won $50,000. We don't know how much money he won, so who knows?
I'm surprised.
So they
that
say
still
that
had
the
him
winner
up
for
here working
UFC
hardcore
7,
shit. I was like,
Marco
all right.
Ruas.
What a great gimmick, though. It's so
And
good.
then
Like,
the
it's
final
awesome
word,
that, like,
Bruce
they
Beck
keep trying-
ends
like,
it with,
Bischoff hates
that's
Terry
it
Funk.
from Buffalo,
He
New
loses
York,
this belt so
for
bad
the
that
Dragon
every
Don
single time he
Wilson
works a
and
fucking
Jeff
match, he ends up
Blatnick
just winning somehow.
and Michael
Yeah.
Buffer. By the way,
Away
I
franchise.
didn't see
Whatever you
any
had planned for
Jeff
tonight, brother.
Blatnick
Ain't
doing
happening.
interviews.
So go
I
ahead
think
and
I
rip
went
up
on the
the
wrong
throat.
video, but
All
I'm not going to
right,
look back and find
He
other
just says,
videos
like, we
of
know
it,
you're
so
booked. I know you got
don't
booked, brother.
tell me. And also for
Well, for the
Michael
entertainment of
Buffer,
the fans out
I'm
there,
Bruce
dude,
Beck.
we're booking
We'll
this show
see
tonight,
you
so stick
at
it.
Ultimate
And then the fucking
7.5.
franchise comes out. His deep purple,
And of
Jimmy
course,
Hart style
Ron Van
gameplay.
Cleef is in the ring, celebrates
He
with him
comes
as
out, he
well.
says,
And that's it.
Music.
And that's
This
how
is
the show
definitive,
ends.
Man. This is like definitive. Like,
So,
he was fired up from when Hogan
At
started
this moment,
shaking. Let me show
guys,
you how it's done.
I recorded for over 2.5 hours, and my final thought about this entire show is, what did we get out
Well,
of
he's
it?
booking the show tonight, bro.
Technically, guys, I got out of
Or
nothing
maybe
from
not,
here,
dude.
I don't know what's
considering
crazy.
for
Just
what
like
it
the
is.
fucking
And
show,
I will
guys.
say this, though. I think for understanding, UFC 7 sure made a lot of interesting stuff in the world of understanding that UFC 7 had to be different than what it is.
For better
So
and not for worse, brother.
I think
was
it
booking, or maybe I
understands
wasn't.
that even though New York would never come back again to UFC until 2016 and 2017, which is interesting how they went back until UFC. Guys, UFC 7 was a long time ago, and they come back until UFC 5, 198 UFCs later, and then 5 more later at 103 more, 203 more to go. At UFC 5, they go to New York City, and then 5 more later at UFC 10, they go back to Buffalo, New York. It was crazy. I will say, though, the Aftermath does put out some interesting effects, but considering they did make martial arts illegal, but only for barely 21 years. So you look back at it, it was interesting. Marco Ruas, congratulations, but still, it was surprising. For what it was.
No, that's
It really
that's
was.
Mr. Stash or whatever.
That's major
And guys,
stuff.
as for the auditorium, the story of the auditorium would actually be so horrifically hard for me to understand.
What's the shirt say? I wrote it down.
Because a year later, as I said before, guys, as it is, because about 368 days later, on September the 11th, 1996, the building would be closed and then demolished in April. And it is bad, guys, because the building that still stood, there was an aerial view in October of 2007, 2 years before the demolishing, and the building seemed okay to me. But yet again, you can't say much about that for what it is. Also, guys, after the construction of the venue, now known as KeyBank Center, and it remained vacant until being demolished until then. Surprisingly, the new building, Bandited, was actually broke ground on November the 4th, 1994. The KeyBank Center, which is actually about an interesting amount of kilometers away. As it is, the coordinations is like 42 degrees of longitude and around a 78 degree latitude for where the building is. Barely at its touch, but the circuits are barely close because the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium that would be dead until 2009 due to the development corporations and such. The coordinations are 42 degrees of 52, 41, and 78, 52, 39 W. The KeyBank is actually, as it still stands today, because it broke ground on November the 4th, is at 42 degrees of 52, 30 N, and 78 degrees, 52, 35 W. So, pretty much, the buildings are, so they're actually close to each other from comparison, but in different locations. So, take that for what you will.
Hogan says, first things first, Billy.
Considering how the building,
until they show Billy Kidman, I swear
well, to be honest, the KeyBank building as of today does hold the Buffalo Sabres as its operation, because when it was finally built on September the 21st, 1996, as it was finished building as of today, the Buffalo Sabres and the Buffalo Bandits of the National Lacrosse League are still a team in those buildings to this day. The NCAA team of the Golden Griffins basketball team ran there until 1996, but left until 1998, and the Buffalo Blizzards of the NPSL, aka the National Professional Soccer League, ran there until 1996 to 2001. The Buffalo Wings, known as the Roller Hockey International, ran there in 1997. And the Buffalo Destroyers, a.k.a. the Arena Football League, were there in 1999 to 2003. So, yeah, considering all that being said, I would say there's a lot of entertainment factors here. There is some interesting moments, great moments to be talked about. But if I would be talking about it, we'll be here all day. But yet again, that would be too much information for me to talk about. Professional wrestling in the KeyBank does run as WCW and WWE did ran during their time during the Monday Nitro and the Monday Night Wars. And AEW are also working as they ran included tapings in that venue as well. And pay-per-views like Fully Loaded 1999 and the Fall Brawl of 2000 and the Great American Bash 2005 did have their own moments. And seeing how WWE went Fully Loaded in July 25th, 1999, and then in September the 17th, 2000, the horrible Fall Brawl pay-per-view in WCW ran there a year later, crazy. Armageddon went in 2008 with Night of Champions in 2011 and Battleground in 2013 for WWE pay-per-views, and that was it. And yes, as the before, UFC 210 for the Cormier and Johnson 2 fight did manage to held there after, well, almost over 20 years since being back in Buffalo for under 22 years. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see interesting landmark moments here, but guys, seeing how it ended differently, I can't say much about this other than how anyone would have ever thought that this was the end of the building.
It's like a Sharpie. It looks
At the end of the day, guys, I can't talk much right now because my voice is already losing it. But guys, considering it is August the 26th, which is my birthday right now, 27 years old, but at this moment, birthday parties stink for me because I don't have real friends. But yeah, that's the way life goes.
I remember him personally as the big uncle.
But guys, considering this, guys, this will be the 30th anniversary of September the 8th, 2025, the 30th anniversary of this show taking place in UFC 7, which was a landmark for all the wrong reasons, but man, it's great to review it for once, and I'm happy that I'm done talking about it because I'm tired, my throat stinks right now. And as this video is already uploaded on Monday the 8th right now, the second week of September right now, I already have to review Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford and Naoya Inoue in his other fights, which is going to be my 100th episode. So yeah, I gotta relax my voice, take some time off. I've already done my Shoutgun Saturday Night episodes, which I'm already going to announce, guys. Guys, as this video is already uploaded, I'm actually going to take a long hiatus from doing Shoutgun Saturday Night episodes. I'm going to take a break from doing boxing and professional sports right now. And I'm just going to start watching NASCAR because I feel like going back to watching other stuff that I used to watch. So I think it's probably for the best for me to not get this type of stuff into my head because I think boxing and MMA fighting are getting bored for me right now. But you know what? I'm happy I got this over with, and that's about it. So thank you, viewers, for watching. And with that being said, see you next time for the 100th episode of the Mr. Gold Podcast. See you guys next time. Let me watch something.